for the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to an all-new season of the SimRacing International GT3 Championship as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available on PC known as iRacing and powered by none other than Trophy.ai. That's right folks, we are back for our 10th instalment of the GT3 Championship that continues to always want to answer the question, who is the master and mistress of the GT3 class machine? And we kick things off today with the first of our 10 rounds for what is the Sunset season. That's right, we're being the 10th season of our GT3 Championship here at SimRacing International. We've decided to go big and we've decided to bring the sun down on what's been an absolutely brilliant decade of seasons so far. And albeit it hasn't quite been 10 years, but it must feel like it to some of our drivers who've been on the grid since season 1. But with it being an anniversary season, we thought, you know what, let's mix things up. 10 rounds, 60-minute races in each round. There's no sprint rounds this season, it is all feature race rounds. And with it all, a complete deviation from the regular calendar you see in the iRacing official GT3 series. It's a calendar that's been completely set up by us here at SimRacing International. And well, with the theme of sunset, it's going to be sunshine all the way to sundown at the end of race day. No rain in sight, indeed sunshine out there, keeping our drivers smiling all the way from lights out to checkered flag. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from circuit side as you're tuning in right now on the official YouTube channel of SimRacing International. Indeed, all you've got to do is go to youtube.com and search for SRI or SimRacing International and you can be tuning in there. And today you're tuning in, of course, on this broadcast to Split B, the split which covers both the Pro and also the Evo classes. And welcome and hello to so many of you tuning in, including there Cryfuels, also there Denny Ploger, also to Stitch, also to Joe Sapra, to Barry Wenman, SIR Captain HXC, Taurus and Anstis Races to name a few. And if you are in the chat right now, don't be shy, feel free to say hi because we don't bite here at SimRacing International. The only biting you're going to be seeing is the biting on the brakes into each and every heavy braking zone as our drivers avoid going into the ABS wherever possible, but let's do battle each and every lap. Now that being Split B, in the quarantine booth you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain the Split, depending on what media follow me on, and I will bring you all your racing action as it unfolds for the entirety of this season. Split A will have its own broadcast as well, and Split A of course will be focused on the combination of the Elite and Premier classes, and all the racing action will be brought to you by the combination of Joe Glass and Darren Thacker there. You've got the brilliant team behind Split A. Unfortunately, their broadcast is not going to be live from the season opener as of tonight. It will be next week on Tuesday the 30th of October at 8 o'clock in the evening UK time, but we're here live today for the Split B racing action unfolds and we get the season underway. Speaking of where we're getting things underway, well, we are here in Hungary at the Hungaroring circuit, a circuit that on paper at least beast is known best as the Monaco without the walls. 14 corners, and the best part of what is there, 4.33 kilometres, but over its extremities it is a circuit that leaves little to the imagination when it comes to overtaking. To overtake here, you've got to overtake at key points in the circuit, whether it be turn 1 at the hairpin, or alternatively the run through the chicane in towards turn 6 and 7. That's where the key overtaking spots will be. With overtaking opportunities limited at this circuit, it means you've got to be bold. Alternatively, you've got to absolutely nail qualifying. Speaking of which, qualifying is currently underway, and there's so much change for this season. We're going to come into talking about all the changes and more very shortly, in case you missed the pre-season broadcast last week and therefore need to be brought up to speed. But don't worry, you haven't missed your homework. We're going to make sure you're educated on exactly what's happening in Season 10 and therefore what you can expect as we make our way into an absolutely brilliant instalment of racing that all begins today. But speaking of the instalments then, let's give you a look at the calendar. Well, last time out on the 18th of September, we were at the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg Grand Prix circuit, and it was our pre-season event there. It was a pre-season event to be remembered in the fact that all the drivers were getting acclimatised to the new qualifying and race format. Albeit the race format will not feel as strange, given it was a 60-minute race, and it'll be 60-minute races throughout the entirety of the season here. No sprint races whatsoever. Strategy is going to be key, as well as qualifying well and also being bold on the overtakes, either in the opening or the second stint. However, what's important is the fact now consistency is being prioritised over the course of the racing distance, with the fact that all of the rounds will involve 60-minute races, preceded, of course, by a 60-minute open qualifying session. But as we open up today, we open up our account on the 25th of September, and it is round number 1 at the Hungaroring Grand Prix circuit. From here, we'll be making our way around the globe, and many of these circuits, of course, you'll regularly know from previous seasons, if not if you're a big fan of GT3 racing, because most of these circuits are visited on an annual basis by GT World Change or IMSA. Because in round number 2, we'll be making our way to Circuit Zandvoort on the 2nd of October, and there in the Dutch countryside, we'll be seeing our drivers take on the very heavily cambered circuit and looking to absolutely abuse the camber of the road to carry as much speed as possible. In round 3, it will be over to Portugal for the Algarve International Circuit, also known as the Portimao Grand Prix circuit, and we'll see there in the city of Portimao that our drivers will look to do battle over the old school vibe feeling, but a very young circuit, only opened in 2008, and on the 9th of October it really will feel as though it's a trip back in time, except it's still in the present. Mugello then plays host on the 16th of October as we make our way to Italy, and is an Italian doubleheader from round 4 to round number 5, as we'll then make our way to the Imola circuit, or the Autodromo International Enzo Dino Ferrari. And on the 23rd of October, our drivers will need to balance the craft of chicanes and extended straights. But we'll go straight into the second half of our season on the 30th of October. There's no mid-season break week, and in round number 6, we head into Canada for the circuit Jules Villeneuve, where the Wall of Champions will loom large, and could it claim a few drivers on the way to them potentially trying to vie for a championship crown? Well, we'll have to wait and see. Then it'll be making our way southwards to the US state of Texas, for the circuit of the America's Grand Prix circuit in round number 7 on the 6th of November, and it'll be November, the month in which we bring the curtain down, with 3 more rounds after that, because it'll be staying in America, the Sebring International circuit in round number 8, the US state of Florida playing host for only 1 round this season, after which we'll then make our way to the US state of Wisconsin for the Countryside Bash. There's Road America on round number 9 on the 25th of November, and then we bring it all to a close just in time for Christmas at the Suzuka Grand Prix circuit around 10 of 10 on the 27th of November. What a way to bring things to a close. The iconic John Hugenholz designed figure of 8 circuit will bring our championship down, and that's where we'll be crowning our champions in all 4 of our drivers' championship classes, and of course in our team's championship as well. But for us to be able to go racing, well, the big question will be, what exactly are drivers competing for this season over the course of 10 rounds? Well, we have 60 personalised driver trophies to be won over the course of this season across our splits and also in our team's championship. On the left, you can see in split A there are top 10 trophies for our top 10 in the GT3 Elite class and also in the Premier classes. The same applies in Split B, whereby those in Pro and Evo, if they finish inside the top 10 of their championship at the end of the season, they'll be taking home a special edition Season 10 trophy, and indeed commemorated there of the brilliant performances of our drivers and commemorated the fact they were on the grid for this anniversary season, the Sunset Series. We also do have, of course, the Teams Championship. That is not differentiated based on split. The teams are indeed rated across both splits. Some teams we entirely in one split, such as Split A or Split B, and some teams we a medley of the two, but they score points in their respective driver classes, and those points are added together at the end of the season, and we will be crowning our team's champion plus also our top 5 teams, and they will all be taking home for up to 4 drivers their own personal drivers trophies there for the team's championship performances. So plenty of trophies online, 60 of them in total, and I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, our drivers absolutely love the trophies from Season 9, and I get the feeling they'll all be absolutely itching to score big for their trophies in Season 10. But in order to be able to achieve prizes, we need some drivers, don't we? And to do so, let's take a look at who's in the Pro class. We have 37 drivers this season. That's right, we have got an absolutely huge Pro class this season. It dwarfs the Evo class a little bit. However, what we can see there is we've got a whole mixture of drivers from privateers all the way through to established teams. Did you know Phoenix Racing have got 3 teams on the grid this season, and you will see at least 2 of those teams in Split B with Phoenix Racing Green and also Phoenix Racing Blue. There's also Phoenix Racing Red team, but speaking of Phoenix Racing Green, you have Jason Hodgson in there, and also you do have Klaas Vellen, just 2 of the drivers there for Phoenix Racing. We also do have 2 teams at Axis SimSports, including the blue and red teams, and blue is going to be predominantly the colour of the Axis SimSport team in Split B, where we do have Jakub Krafik, and also there, in fact, he's a privateer. Let me correct myself there before I go any further. Stephen Codman, I meant to say, and also we will see there David Hutchinson making up 2 of the drivers there for Axis SimSport Blue. But outside those 2 teams for their colorations, we do, of course, have some regular returnees, including the likes of none other than James Bostock, our last iRacing driver in Split B, but he's definitely going to try and deliver above his weight, and the GPX SimSport Onyx driver will be in the contention of a good number of return drivers such as Christoph Stalsmore as well, the Simcast Racing Team UK driver who we'll see in Pro once again, and also Adam Baker for Ellis Racing. And we also do have a big returning name. He wasn't on the grid for Season 9, but he was in the pre-season event last week, and he took victory in the Pro class, Peter Duke for DC Motorsport, and he's here with a very established team of veteran racers, and I'm not talking just about veterans on the sim racing circuit, but also for DC Motorsport, veterans of racing in the 90s. And you may remember, if you tuned into the broadcast last week, we talked about Peter Duke having established real-life racing history, particularly in Formula Vauxhall in the 90s. And, well, he has some of his friends that he used to race with in Formula Vauxhall join him on the grid. And, well, one of them, you may be aware, is a big name in the real world of motorsport. None other than Wayne Douglas, our 31st pro driver there on the right-hand side of your screen. Yes, that is the man who runs Douglas Motorsport, the British F4 Championship team. And he'll be competing for DC Motorsport alongside Peter Duke. And, well, we'll tell you a little bit more about the stories between them all later. But indeed, if I was to tell you that Peter Duke did race alongside none other than Wayne Douglas and also David Collier, well, it is going to be a very interesting team to see how they all play out, given the fact they are primarily in our split. But whether it's newcomers or older names and veterans of all, we wish them all the best luck for this season, and we look forward to seeing how they all get on. But coming on to the Evo class, meanwhile, we have 23 drivers here. In fact, we've got a lot less drivers, so we can fit them all in a single table. And, well, we do have plenty of returnees, including QuakeMass Motorsports' Andy Chell right at the top there in the number 5. You can expect him to look to do well. We do have some other irregular returnees there, including the likes of Denny Ploger and also Matt Stace. But also at the other end, we do have some new faces on the grid, and those new faces include none other than Billy Brinkley there for none other than 9 Pegasus Panthera. We look forward to seeing what he can do after his brilliant performance at the Hockenheimring last time out. Also, we have newcomer and privateer Simon Clifton on the grid in the number 6, and also Sinhui Alvarez, who will be joining the grid for 9 Pegasus Panthera. So plenty of new and old faces there, and it'll be intriguing to see how they all mix things up. And while perhaps the biggest surprise of them all, Denny Ploger, one of the touted favourites going into this season. I had the pleasure of catching up with Denny in the build-up to today, and he's saying to me he's only targeting a top 10 in the Evo Championship for this season, and that's due to a recent medical procedure that he's had on one of his arms, and therefore he's not fully fit to go racing. And I have said to him, and indeed many drivers have said to him, Denny, don't push yourself too hard, but he wants to be on the grid and he wants to finish inside that top 10 and take home a trophy. So good luck to the MJK Sim Racing driver. He's going to push himself relatively hard, but I'm sure he'll have his medical aspects in mind as he goes racing, and we look forward to seeing what he can do. One of the other big names as well, Steve Rubino is back once again for Hobo Racing, our 17th Evo driver there in the tower, and well, we look forward to seeing what the 21 driver can do, given the fact that he has so far in 2 seasons back-to-back missed major opportunities to try and steal a crown, but will he miss an opportunity the 3rd time around? But as our drivers get set then, a quick reminder of what's changed for this season in terms of the rules. Well, the Season 9 rule changes because we now move into Season 10, but what have we changed from Season 9? As we do see there, our number on screen update itself very shortly because we move over to Season 10, and as we come onto Season 10, well, the big theme, as our slide decides to disappear, and well, it'll come back very shortly. It's a little bit shy, and there it is once again. Well, what we can tell you is, in terms of our split class assignment, Split A, it's now Elite and Premier. We're experimenting for a season and splitting the class up a little bit further, and this is to try and create a bigger pace delta between the classes, as we did see across both Split A and Split B in Season 9, that Elites and Pros are very close to each other, particularly in the midfield, and it was the same for the Premiers and Evos, and what it led to was a lot of inter-class fighting, which whilst great on a broadcast, not always great for our drivers, particularly when they're trying to chase the championships, and it's not to say we don't like that kind of racing, but we are trying to focus the drivers around battling within their classes and perhaps having a nip at the higher class class or lower class when opportunity arises, they find themselves out of position for some reason. So therefore, we should see the racing much more class-focused this season, and we look forward to seeing how it all plans across our two splits. Qualifying-wise, we have now moved to a 60-minute qualifying session. However, most importantly, it's now an open session. We've trebled the length of it, and we're putting all the cars out on circuit now, not in isolated sessions. That means our drivers need to be wary of each other and use the hour to their full advantage. So the track will evolve, rubber will go down, fuel loads will be absolutely critical, and getting those tyres up to temperature will prove to be ever more important. And that means it's going to be intriguing to see who is going to be able to absolutely nail qualifying here in what is a much more traditional qualifying session that you would think of from what is motorsport in the real world. We also do have a new rule around car changes. Drivers have one free car change available during the season without a penalty being levied if they change their car. And so indeed, our drivers will have an opportunity to potentially change up their car over the course of the season if things aren't working out, or if they potentially find that towards the end of the season, a certain car is going to suit certain circuits right at the end. Not saying that's the plan, but that could be in the minds of some drivers here. So there might be some more tactics behind the scenes, and some teams might be bringing multiple cars over the course of this season, albeit they only get the one car change each driver. If they do any more than that, then they will be subject to the standard penalty point procedure. But those are the main rule changes for Season 10, but enough of the rules. Let's talk a little bit about our host circuit for this season opener. It is the Hungaroring's Grand Prix circuit, located near the town of Magyarország, within the vicinity of Budapest in Pest County of Hungary, 2.72 miles in length, or 4.38 kilometres close to the units, 14 corners. And what is the unique trait of this circuit beyond the fact it is a very tight circuit? The unique trait about the Hungaroring is it's a circuit that struggles to evolve. Now you're probably sat there thinking to yourself, what exactly does he mean by that? Has he lost his marbles? Well, most circuits, you lay down marbles. As you run the rubber down from the tyres, you're naturally increasing the amount of rubber on the track surface, and therefore the grip levels gradually rise at the circuit as long as there's not any rain. Now, we're not expecting any rain here, but the thing about the Hungaroring is it's located in the middle of a valley, a very tight valley, and therefore what it means is the winds that chop down the valley and the amount of dust that comes down from the edges of the valley very quickly means that all the rubber that's laid down is either blown away or it's covered in dust, and therefore the grip levels at the Hungaroring do not really improve, and that means consistency here is absolutely painful to achieve, but if you can achieve it, it is worth plenty of time over the race distance. That makes this a very technical circuit to get right from the outset and makes it a very unique challenge, particularly when we do have the best part of 60 drivers looking to make the way onto the grid for this season opener. But enough rules, enough regulation, everything in between. Let's head back to the circuit side because we are in the throes of qualifying, and as we are, all the drivers heading around right now, but who's the fastest out there? And it does seem to be currently Vincent Lodder, who's the fastest of the pros, and indeed overall, as he makes his way on through there for SimRacing Team Lowlands. And we look forward to seeing what the Dutchman can deliver here, because he definitely has been one of the big names who's moved gradually up through the ranks over the last couple of seasons. Started in what was the Premier class, has moved to Pro, and ever since moving to the Pro class, he definitely has laid down some big benchmarks, and will right now continue to do so. The Ferrari 296 is looking very good, and Menno Blom, his teammate, only 600ths behind, and well, quite intriguing there, given the fact that these two are very close together. And well, we saw them very close together at the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit, where they did qualify inside the top 10 but couldn't quite make the way to pole. But as they head on around, what about the man who took victory overall and in Pro last time out? Well, here he is. His name is Peter Duke, and well, your eyes do not deceive you, because he has gone away from the DDK Racing Team Honda Acura NSX, and indeed Honda or Acura, depending on your preference and nomenclature, but the fact it was an NSX Evo 22 machine he's been racing in for several seasons. And well, he openly admitted he decided to mix things up when he spoke to me in the post-round interview room after the racing at the Hockenheimring, and with a new team and a new season, he's decided to go to the Mercedes AMG Evo machine from 2020, and he's absolutely loving this car so far, and he's looking to see whether he can carry on from where he finished in Germany by absolutely running away with things. Now, to be fair to him, he wasn't the pole man at the Hockenheimring. The pole man was none other than Robin Milton. However, Peter and Robin battled hard, both on circuit and on strategy, and it was strategy that enabled Mr. Duke to make his way ahead on the undercut and then not look back when Robin Milton got caught out with the fuel load towards the end, and also a little bit of traffic. And that is why Peter Duke is considered to be one of the favourites based on the pre-season event. Just for the simple reason he nailed everything absolutely right, and if he can find a couple more attempts in qualifying, he may just be able to put himself right at the front of the field. But of course, different circuits each week, they will favour and go against certain cars, and we do expect the Mercedes here, indeed many of the front engine rear-wheel drive cars, to potentially struggle at the Hungaroring as somebody's into the barrier in the rear of the picture, and I believe that might have been Rob Gregg taking a bit of a moment to the wall, unless I'm mistaken. For no, No, in fact, that was Wayne Douglas there. My apologies, another DC Motorsport car. But as he makes one round, Peter Duke, well, Robin Milton's coming out the pit lane here as he makes his way on down. And we're very happy to see the Acura NSX Evo driver roaring his way out the pit lane, albeit under the pit limiter initially. But as he heads in towards turn number 1, currently down in 12th place for the Pro drivers, this is not where he wants to be. What about, meanwhile, in the Evo class? We talked about the pros, but let's talk about the other class out there. Well, currently, your provisional pole sitter in Evo is the Ford Mustang, the number 41 of Simon Clifton. Looking very good there, and running the Golf livery machine once again. Absolutely wonderful to see. But what was the trend, of course, on the Hockenheimring? Many of you may be wondering who did set the pace there. Well, it was very interesting because it was Simon Clifton versus Rob Gregg in a very close duel for pole position. But whilst Rob Gregg took that pole position, and it was Simon who just finished behind him in that qualifying session, it was then Simon Clifton who took the lead early on and ran away with it over the distance and finished 25 seconds clear of the rest of his competitors. However, it should be pointed out that whilst his pace did look class-defining, many of his rivals, such as Denny Plurger and Brandon Brinkley, I should say, not Blinkley, the L's further in his name, well, they all showed comparable race pace, but because they qualified further down and found a lot of traffic as the racing went on, that's why they lost out by comparison. So Clifton was allowed to break away, really, and his rivals will be hoping that he doesn't do so today. But speaking of another Ford Mustang that's looking good out there, well, Steve Rubino's in the Ford Mustang once again, the Hobo Racing driver, sticking with the lovely machine, having gone to it, of course, from the BMW M4 over previous seasons. And, well, right now he's looking to see whether he can put himself right at the front. He is only the best part of 16 thousandths of a Clifton's pole time there. So that's looking very close between the two of them. And Rob Gregg, meanwhile, you've got to go all the way down to 33rd place to find Rob Gregg as we look to the overall time tower. And, well, as he makes one through, he's in the Aston Martin Evo machine. He's third of the Evo drivers, and right now between himself and Rubino, it is a sizable delta of the best part of 6/10. So it does seem as though right now it's either the Ford Mustang that's very strong, or Clifton and Rubino have been doing their homework, whereas everybody else is still doing their studies as they head on through in the Evo class. As we do see Greg intentionally going a little bit deep there just to let the car run wide and give himself a bit more space to the car in front. Everyone else queuing up behind. He gets ready to go onto a flying lap. That does Rob. And as he does so, well, let's talk a little bit about change in terms of cars. We do have a new kid on the grid, and it is the Aston Martin Vantage Evo machine from 2022. Now, this is powered by a V8 twin-turbo power plant provided by Mercedes. It's not a British manufactured machine. Indeed, you'd have to go back to the DBR9 GT1 machine of the late noughties and early 2010s for the last time that Aston Martin in the GT3 or GT competitive car ran a car which was powered by a British power plant. And back then, of course, it was the 6-litre V12 that absolutely screamed. But the V12 has been retired since the DB9, and now the V8 Vantage is powered by the German power plant, albeit worked on jointly between Mercedes and Aston Martin, and, well, with a twin turbo to go with it. In fact, I do believe it's the same engine as what's in the Mercedes AMG, unless I'm mistaken, so I believe it is still the combination of the 6.3 litre V8. I might be incorrect on that, to be fair. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but the point being around here that as we do see Greg make his way on through, well, right now, German engine, British machine, trying to bring it all together here, and we're very happy to see the Aston Martin here, and we do believe some more GT3s might be on the way in the coming seasonal updates to iRacing, although I'm sat here right now, I must be honest, twitching at the hope that one day we'll see the Lexus RCF arrive. Well, to be fair, with the Aston Martin here, we do have a very healthy GT3 lineup, a very current GT3 lineup as well. But as he makes his way on around, also the other new kid on the block is the BMW M4. Wait, I haven't lost my mind, ladies and gentlemen, I promise you, because this is the M4 Evo that's arrived, and Christopher Starsmore is piloting it right now in the 131 in the Pro class. What's the difference, you ask? Well, it's the same flat 6 inline engine, but as he makes his way on through, well, in fact, it's not a flat 6 engine, it's not inline, I do apologise for that. It's a 6-cylinder turbo-powered engine, flat 6 inline being the Porsche 992, meanwhile. But the point being, this BMW powered by the same engine, but the difference is aerodynamics and front suspension adjustments. However, the reports down the paddock so far is the fact that this car is a lot more stable in its front end compared to the base model. The only problem is, as Starsball proves otherwise, it goes very sideways in towards the right-hander at turn number 11. The only problem is now the car has a tendency to want to understeer into medium-speed corners heavily, and then when the rear does come around, it comes around rather aggressively, as we just witnessed there from the Simcast Racing Team UK driver. So therefore, it has become a bit of a different beast to try and conquer. And with that, it means that our BMW drivers have definitely got a new change ahead of them, and we look forward to seeing what they're going to do. But as we do say hello there to Huckley in the YouTube chat, and I do believe that is none other than Jakub Krafik, and we do say hello to him, and I hope you're doing well, Jakub. And well, I can tell you one thing, he's currently making his way on around here in the 101, and well, in 30th place right now, and he does mention there his plan is not to get drive-throughs with any off-tracks. We do have, of course, our standard track limit penalty limits for what will be drive-throughs, and they are quite aggressive, so our drivers will need to be on their best behaviour. We do say hello to a few more of you there in the YouTube chat, including Sakuria566, who cheers on McNaughton. And in terms of who McNaughton is, if you're wondering there, if you're sat questioning, well, we do have none other than Robert McNaughton here. He's currently all the way down in 52nd place. He's one of our last qualifiers at the moment as he tries to step aside there. That's getting a little bit tender. And well, in fact, a bit of a side-by-side moment there when Aston Martin has had to back off. That won't be too happy, but McNaughton had no real other place to go. So you can understand why he'll probably feel as though he'll be looking over his shoulder and going, what else could I do? But McNaughton here, new to the grid, and we look forward to him what he's going to be able to do in the Evo class. And last time out the Hockenheimring, well, it was a good display for his pre-season event, getting himself very established in the grid and enjoying some good little battles, and that's what we love to see. We'll also say hello there to Ashley Brooks, who says with regards to Pirelli stickers and tyres on the cars, and indeed I do believe right now running the Pirelli compounds on these racing machines, and also cheering on their DXT Motorsports and Axis Sim Sports, and also giving a shout out to Vulcan and Fasters by Glass Tech, albeit talking there about Moyland moving teams. I don't believe we do have the Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech team here, unless I'm mistaken, ladies and gents. We need so many teams to keep track of as well, and with the shift of the splits as well. But as they all make the way on through, well, there's not too much time left in this qualifying session. Only 5 minutes left on the clock, plus the final qualifying lap. They do get overtime now in qualifying as well. When we hit 60 minutes, it won't just be done and dusted. They will get an opportunity to try and improve. And well, speaking of improvements there, that was James Howarth going around at turn number 3. We briefly saw him there, and well, as he brings the car back together, he will be hoping he doesn't make a mistake like that again. Martin Brandon, meanwhile, he's new to the grid as well. I'm very happy to see him here, racing in Evo class, and well, he's in the Good Smile Racing Mercedes AMG Evo, and indeed a very special livery there. If you're not aware of it, tune into GT3 Championship Asia, and you'll notice that this is the car with the infamous Hatsune Miku livery on it. The Vocaloid, of course, from Japanese culture there. I'm not too afraid with my Vocaloids, even though I'm a bit of an anime fan. I don't really follow Vocaloids there, but I'm sure somebody can enlighten me as to the details if you are a big Vocaloid person. But as he makes his way down the start-finish straight, for Brandon, he's currently 51st place, out of 54 entrants here. But everyone has got a lap on the board and is trying to improve, as is David Pilcher, as he makes his way in the BMW M4 Evo, tucked in between a Porsche and a Mercedes. So we've got 3 German marks all together. And well, as he roars around, we need to bring you an on-board lap with one of our drivers, ladies and gentlemen. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to bring you an on-board lap with our Season 9 Premier Champion. It is going to be Dean Sheesby as he gets ready to go in the Mercedes AMG Evo, changing the BMW out, and he pulls over there, tries to get away from the traffic, tries to give himself some clear air, does so very well, so Sheesby times it right, and here we go then, folks. It's going to be a flying lap of the Hungaroring, brought to you by the Premier Champion, and now looks to try and bring himself forward into Pro. So making his way down the start-finish straight, the Vor of the V8 absolutely screaming as he makes his way down towards turn number 1, and as he makes his way into that braking zone. New Moonshiners Racing Club livery on the car as well, breaking the 100-meter board and all the way down to second gear. Nice early apex there, get the right hand wheels on the curb, get it to rotate the car through, and now powering his way down towards turn number 2. Keep the car over to the right hand side here, and you'll notice the corner gradually drops away from the driver as they brake about 75 minutes of corner apex. Sheesby intentionally goes deep there to get a nice V-cut, and that gives him a nice tight exit line because he needs to go to the left to open up turn number 3. Now it's flat out all the way up towards turn number 4, using all the runoff space he's allowed to, keep 2 wheels on the white lines, of course, and now it's going to be a dab of the brakes, drop a gear into 3rd, take the apex, and then put the throttle back in immediately, and now over to the left-hand side and in towards turn number 5. Now wait for it, feed the throttle in little by little, 2nd gear, get over the bump in the road, and bring the car over to the left-hand side, and now look for the brake mark, it'll be on the left, and braking just before the marshal's post in towards the turn 6-7 chicane. Straight line between the 2 apexes, now it's into the S's, and this is where things get very technical. Through turn number 8 he goes, runs a little bit deep there, Sheesby, and now in towards turn number 9, gets that nailed on, but a compromise line through 8 means he didn't quite get a late apex in 9. Now into turn number 10, flat out through here, keep the car nice and over to the left, and onto the brakes quickly, drop a gear back into 3rd, and flat out now as he makes way down towards turn number 12. Oh, goodness me, as that was a bit of oversteer there for Sheesby, Sheesby, somebody in front got it very, very wrong. And now Sheesby onto the brakes in towards turn number 12, the right-angled right-hander. Well, from second gear in towards third and now in towards turn number 13. It's the run of 2 hairpins back-to-back here, with very slow hairpins as well, as he uses the pit entry there to widen out the corner. And Sheesby not happy with that lap and decides to put the car into the pit lane. He won't be going any further with Sheesby, and he's not pleased at all. Vincent Lodder, meanwhile, well, he's going to be having an absolutely huge grin on his face right now as he makes one around, because the SimRacing Team Lowlands driver, he hasn't really improved since his personal best, that 43.106, but does he need to improve when nobody else seems to be improving around him? Indeed, right now, Menno Blom is the second fastest, 600ths behind, but in the pit lane. The same for Stephen Codman. Simon Clifton, meanwhile, well, he's currently on course to be a provisional Evo pole sitter. He's all the way up in 7th place. My good Lord, Clifton has absolutely nailed this qualifying session on, and, well, if so, the Evo driver here could be in a bit of a class of his own today, because then Steve Rubino is your second fastest Evo driver in 23rd, and your third fastest, he's just jumped up Denny Ploger there, pulling it out the hat right at the end of the qualifying session, and well done to Ploger. A phenomenal lap there, and it goes to show you he's got the pace out there if he's able to lay it down. But as we say hello to Ross Norsworthy in the YouTube chat, is cheering on Simcast Racing Team UK. We say hello to Ross on the grid, and this is Ross Young, new to the grid, and, well, indeed, a late arrival to the grid, but very happy to have him here and competing in the Pro class. And we're right now making his way through that opening right-hander for the final qualifying lap of his session, and making his way on through in that McLaren 720S Evo, its twin turbo power plant. But coming in towards turn number 3, and a good observation there from Taito Nation, or I believe that's James Howarth in the YouTube chat, saying that the top 18 separated by 9/10. It is a very close qualifying session, and Mark DeRees in 18th place right now. If he was to find a single 10th, he'd suddenly be propelled all the way up into 16th place. That's how small the margins are. Indeed, the margins are becoming marginal, as I like to say, but as we do see Young continue his way on around, one improvement, meanwhile a bit further down the order from Victor Van Zeest, as we do see the Dutchman make his way across that timeline, and his qualifying session is done and dusted, but puts himself into 17th place. Good effort from him. Tim van den Ham, the SimRacing Team Lowlands driver, new to the team for this season, at least for Split B, and as he makes his way down towards turn number 12, what can he do here? Because we've got 2 Ferraris at the very front of the field. Can he become the 3rd Ferrari in succession? Because otherwise it's going to be 2 Ferraris, then a Ford and a Mercedes, and then a Ford and then a Ferrari. And no, we're not going to quite replicate Ford versus Ferrari today, ladies and gentlemen. We're not at Le Mans, but it definitely does seem as though it is going to be a battle of V8s versus 6-cylinders inside the top 3 rows. And Will van den Ham condemns himself to 6th place. He comes into the pit lane. He knows he can't improve anymore. Wayne Douglas of DC Motorsport, he's doing a good job here as he makes his way on through. And, well, the team that was founded by the combination of Peter Duke, that's the D, and then none other than Collier, that's the C. Well, it's right now Wayne Douglas is another D in there, and is he doing the D for delivering? And the answer is he's delivering quite well, currently 14th fastest, and on this lap he has got a personal best middle sector, and it's actually quite a strong middle sector. The strongest middle sector out there being a 40.50, previously set by Nick Stubbs. And the Mercedes goes well in the middle sector, intriguingly, the very technical and tight sector where you'd expect the Mercedes to struggle. As he dances his way in towards the final corner, dancing on that rear end. You can see how they had to set the car up to be very loose on the back. We're going towards that timeline. Does Douglas go any further from 14th? The answer is no. Meanwhile, just behind him there, newcomer of Fotis Katehos, I should say. Get his surname correct the first time. He did tell me how to pronounce it earlier. Well, Fotis crosses the line, and, well, he's 34th. He does improve to a personal best of 44.741, but it's not enough to move any further up the order. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, qualifying is said and done. And, well, for our first pole position of the season, it's not quite this man. It's Stephen Codman who will start 3rd on the grid, but it is a SimRacing Team Lowlands 1-2. 2 Ferraris, Vincent Lodder ahead of Menno Blom overall and in Pro. And meanwhile, in the Evo class, it's 7th place to Simon Clifton. An absolutely phenomenal pole lap from him. And in your second fastest in Evo is Steve Rubino, all the way down in 24th place, with Chris Jennings separating him from 3rd place Evo driver of Denny Ploger. So it does seem as though it's going to be a question of, can anybody close down Clifton? But it's not going to be boredom in the Evo class, I can tell you that, because further down the order, we've got a lot of Evo drivers very close together in this qualifying order, including from 38th of James Fraser all the way through to 49th in Snui Alvarez, and well, all 10 of those drivers separated by a very small margin. But without further ado, qualifying is complete. We now have 5 minutes rest for our drivers in order to make any setup changes to the car, and also to give themselves a bit of a comfort comfort break, but after these 5 minutes, we will be making our way to the grid for our first race of the season. So whilst we do wait to go racing, we do say hello there to Liam Fraser from the Moonshiners, and I hope you're doing well, Liam. And we also do say an apology there to Ross, as in Ross Norsworthy in the YouTube chat. It says, there's another Ross. How have I allowed this in Split B? Don't ask me, Ross. It's down to the organisers there. You're going to have to put in a protest with regards to that one. And thankfully, after all the racing today, a protest form will be available. However, you do put in a protest with regards to the fact there's an extra Ross on the grid. I think that's going to be the best protest we've ever received at SimRacing International. But goodness me, we'd absolutely love to see it. But as I head on through, I also see Joe Sapra there asking the question, where are all the Astons? And that is a very good question. Now, one of the things we didn't really talk about when we introduced the new kid on the block is what are the strengths and weaknesses of the Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo. It's a bit of an odd car, this one, because on paper, you would imagine a V8 power plant plus the turbo, it's going to be very quick on a straight. The answer to that is yes, it is. However, it comes with some significant downsides, and perhaps the biggest downside of the Aston Martin is the fact that it lacks low-end torque. It needs the turbo to work on that low-end torque. The balance performance really limiting that factor, so it does mean that this is a car that has to be driven as high as possible in the RPM ranges. You can't let it go below the optimum torque band, otherwise you lose a lot of power. And the Evo model, compared to the preceding base model, which did arrive on the GT3 racing scene in the best part of 2016, was aerodynamic refinements there, and what we have seen is a new body shell in order to be compatible with the Aston Martin Vantage V8 that was released in 2022 when the marque decided to completely facelift the car for the road. And that's why it does have that very distinctive front end now with the lights drawn back, whereas they're much more forward facing and flat at the front in the previous model. And indeed, it is a very noticeable car. The rear end of this car has not been changed, funny enough. The entire rear quarter of the car has remained the same as the original 2016 car, where it's all around the mid-end to the very front where the Aston Martin has completely changed, and we look forward to seeing exactly how that change plays out. But as we said, a car that does struggle a little bit in the low-end RPM, and therefore all the torque is contained at the higher RPM band, and therefore the Aston Martin drivers do have to drive quite aggressively. The downside of that aggression is it means fuel economy actually becomes a bit of a challenge because they're constantly using more fuel in order to maintain those higher revs. Beyond that, fast straight line speed and also relatively stable car and good in the corners as a whole. It is a bit of an all-rounder, and therefore the Aston Martins are cars which will be picked by drivers who are looking for a car that's going to work at every venue this season versus perhaps a bit more of a variety pick, such as, for example, say, Mercedes AMG, which will be very quick on the straights and particularly at power circuits, and with some of those examples being Road America, but may struggle with the more technical circuits such as the Portimao circuit upcoming in the near future. The Porsche 992, a very corner-focused car. Meanwhile, the McLaren, much like the Porsche, the only slight difference is the McLaren has a little bit more instability native to it, but it does mean therefore it's very quick on the direction change through chicanes, but it's also a very snap-sensitive car to snap oversteer. As he makes his way on around, we do see Stuart Rice, who we say hello to there, and I do believe Stuart Rice competing in Split B for this season. And do we have him here today is the question. I'm looking onto my entry list. There's so many drivers, which is so great to see. But I do know he is on the entry list for the Evo class for this season, although Rice walking away from Blue Sky Esports for this season. I don't think he's left them, but he's not representing them this season, and instead he has decided to join the ranks of none other, as I double check, he's joined Phoenix Racing, their red team in particular, for this season in the Evo class, and we look forward to seeing what Stuart's able to do there. He was in the Pro class, of course, last season, and a bit of a frustrating season for Stuart, I think I can say on his behalf, albeit I'm conjecturing this, he hasn't said this to me personally, in the fact that was in the Pro class, but most of the season ended up battling in amongst the Evos. He enjoyed some brilliant battles, to be fair, Stuart. He really did put on some highlights, as the Blue Sky Esports team did, alongside Rachel Hugh, of course, but in the end, it really was a season whereby, because he didn't have the time to get the practice in that he wanted, he found himself a lot further down the order than he would have liked to have been. And we do see Stuart saying there that Rachel could not race the season, so he's racing as part of Phoenix for the season. Well, Stuart, it's a shame that Rachel couldn't be here, and we do hope she's doing well, but we're very happy to have you here, of course, and we look forward to seeing what you can do in the Aston Martin. But as you make your way on through, indeed many a driver here, albeit I believe you're in the Aston Martin, you can correct me if I'm wrong there, well, we are not too far away from what is the start of the season, ladies and gents, because qualifying has been completed. The warm-up is only 20 seconds away. As quickly as that, we've caused the warm-up to expire. And, well, as we do see our LSR racing machine there make its way on through, and that being the very capable Adam Baker. We also do have a quick peek there to one of the two Fraser brothers. We've both got James and Liam on the grid. James, of course, racing in the Evo class, and Liam, meanwhile, from Moonshine's Racing, switching to the Corvette. He is going to be in the Pro class and absolutely putting on a monster of a performance to the Hockenheimring. Well, they're all set to go. Jared Love's also ready to go here for DC Motorsports. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, for us to go green for the first time this season, because it's time to head to the grid here at the Hungaroring. So as the drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for our season opening race. It's Vincent Lodder who takes pole position overall and in the Pro class. He's joined on the front row of the SimRacing Team Lowlands driver by Menno Blom. Behind them on row number 2, it's not going to be a continuation of the STL team because we have Axis Sim Sports Red. That's Stephen Codman who starts third ahead of Nick Stubb for MJK Sim Racing. 2 separated the top 4, and then it was a further half attempt to David Hutchison who starts 5th, and the Scotsman in the company there are Tim van den Ham who starts 6th. From the Dutchman, it's then your Evo pole sitter, Simon Clifton there with a monster pole lap in the Evo class, starts 7th on this grid. We look forward to seeing what he can do, only 2,000ths faster than Mark Johnson. From the Axis Sport Red driver, it's then the continuation of what will be the pros, with Liam Fraser and Jared Love making up row number 5 and completing a top 10 for Moonshiners Racing Club and DC Motorsport. Peter Duke starts 11th for DC Motorsport ahead of Robin Milton for Phoenix Racing Green, with James Howard for Dexterous Motorsport ZMX ahead of Wayne Douglas, who makes his debut from 14th place for DC Motorsport. Dean Sheesby and Christopher Starsma line up on row number 8 ahead of Victor Van Zeest and Jamie Bardwell, with Klaas Vellen and Mark De Vries completing your top 20. In 21st, it's Adam Baker ahead of Robin Aston, with GPX SimSport Onyx drivers being followed by Adam Smith and Steve Rubino, Rubino being your second place starter in the Evo class. Chris Jennings and Denny Plugger line up on row 13 ahead of Ross Young and Mark Van Mulken, with Philip Harris and Jovan Hurag completing the top 30. It's then Jakub Krafik who starts 31st ahead of Jason Hodgson, with Robin Powney and Fortis Katitos in 34th, ahead of Rob Gregg and Tom Cordy ahead of James Bostott and James Fraser, and it's Andy Cho and Stuart Rice completing your top 40. Then on row number 21, it's Dave Collier ahead of Callum Morrow, with Martin Brandon and Matthew Hunt on row 22, Billy Brinkley and Matt Stace on row 23 ahead of Gav Newton and Alex Boniface, Sinhui Alvarez and Jim Fox complete your top 50, and it's Paul Maffey, Roman Norton, Max Dean and David Pilcher who complete your top 54 drivers as they all roar their way away for the first time this season, ladies and gentlemen. We squeezed in the grid, and Vincent Lodder squeezes his way down towards turn 1 as here comes the Ford Mustang and Stephen Codman immediately on the attack as they all come flying on through. We are racing for season 10, and Split B right now immediately going full heavy metal here as they roar the way around through turns 1 and 2. It's 2 wide still at the front, blowing battling with Lodder, and it's going to get on the inside there as they come down to the braking zone, but further back, all the drivers saved on through the opening few corners. We had a couple of drivers opt to start from the pit lane and make the way out, but for the most part, everybody right now absolutely up to full racing pace as they roar the way down through turn 3 and up towards 4. In up the hill and in toward the braking zone here, we can see that Blom has got ahead, and in fact Codman has snuck ahead of Lodder, so Lodder's dropped down to 3rd place from 1st, and with all these coming through, Simon Clifton, oh my good lord, that's Liam Fraser. Fraser's into the barrier and absolutely catapulted backwards, and Fraser grinds along the barrier, and his race comes to an abrupt halt after a great qualifying performance. Well, that is Fraser completely down and out of the ranks. We'll have to wait and see where he fits back together as that gets very, very scrappy there, and Robin Aston in the McLaren, the GPX SimSport Onyx machine, taking a lot of wounds as he makes his way through the chicane, but I think he was forced through it rather than allowed to go through it with his own volition. But as all the drivers make the way around, we've also had a bit of drama further back, I believe. We've had a bit of a moment for Jason Hodgson and Robin Pownier as all these drivers come charging on around, but it does seem as though most of the Evo drivers here all close together right now, enjoying a good old scrap up and down the field outside the top 30, and this does include Rob Gregg, who's chasing after Andy Chell right now, and Chell moving to the Aston Martin for this season, letting go his absolutely much loved Porsche, but he seems to be very comfortable in it right now and running a very happy 5th in the Evo class. But looking a little bit further up the road, that's elbows out there between Krafik and Hurag. Hurag getting his elbows out for Sim Coach versus the 101 driver, and well, the Porsche driver being made to pull back behind as they make the way through the final quarter for the first time. But as they all coming around and down, looking back to the very front of the field. Lodder battling with Nick Stubb here into the opening hairpin, coming around through turn number 1. And right now the 2 leaders have been allowed to pull away, Blome and Codman, and Lodder and Stubb still side by side. And Stubb here on the inside. He's going to go for it here. Is the Garstep Racing driver. Can he get it done? The answer is not quite, because now it's the switch back to the right-hander, and he's going to have to wait there, and in the end he's going to stay there. And in fact it is going to be Nick Stubb who gets it done, and Lodder has to back off, coming out 3 in towards 4. So Stubb now up into 3rd, and David Hutchison, the Axis Simsport driver, will be the next one to go on the attack. Tim van den Ham meanwhile in 6th place, watching from behind, as further back we do have a little bit of fun going on between Robert McNaughton here and Max Dean. They might be fighting for what is 19th and 20th place in the Evo class, or 51st on the road, but to be fair to them, they're here to have fun just as much as everyone else. And David Pilcher has gained the most out of these 3. He's gained 2 places in Evo since the start of the race. Paul Maffey and Antonio Alvarez a little bit further up the road trying to break away, but to be fair to Dean and McNaughton, they're all learning here, and that's why they're in the Evo class. And a bit further up the road, Stuart Rice here will give the man an Evo class position, and he is going to go for it here as he tries to battle with James Bostock, but in the end, well, he loses out through the chicane. But Rice, to be fair, now has Callum Morrow and Martin Brandon right on his heels, and well, Brandon, they're going very deep through turn number 8 in towards 9. That's not the way you want it to go, and Brandon's now got to bring it back together quickly, because Billy Brinkley is right on his heels. And as they make the way in towards turn number 11, we jump on board here with Brinkley, and well, the question is going to be, what can you do from here? Car going slowly on left. That is Robin Aston, who's got a very wounded car. I suspect it's going to tow to the pit shortly. If not, it's going to crawl to the pit lane. We're going to have to get some replays of what happened on the opening couple laps, because we have had plenty of drama, and well, the drama continues to keep on coming, ladies and gentlemen. I can tell you that the Hungaroring is no stranger to a little bit of drama, and well, it's delivering, no doubt about it. Liam Fraser, of course, being the first recipient of all that drama right at the beginning. But as we continue to ride on board here with Brinkley, who is currently running in 11th place in Evo class, and well, the roar of that Porsche machinery right now making its way behind Brandon, but Martin Brandon there with all the straight line speed in the Mercedes, and Brinkley's got to have it in the corners for 9 Pegasus Panthera. Well, no delta between the two right now as they make the way through that right-hander. We're coming out then and up towards the next set of corners they go. Well, we leave Brinkley behind for now and look forward to seeing what he can do a bit later on. Here's Matthew Hunter and Alex Boniface trying to get a bit closer behind. They're not quite close enough to get involved at the moment. As meanwhile, that's brave, and Andy Chell going around the outside of Tom Cordy, who's missing the whole back end to his McLaren. Oh no, that's Rice. Rice goes sideways out of turn number 3. I imagine there's a lack of grip there on the exit curbing, and it sent the car sideways there. The rear has just lifted on the rear left tyre. Rejoins, and well, rejoins there right on the path of Alvarez. Alvarez, to be fair, respecting the fact that it is the situation where Rice has got nowhere to go, and he's got nowhere to go there upon the outside. He just goes around Jim Fox, who goes completely sideways into turn number 5. It's almost as if there's oil down there, albeit there's not, I can tell you. It's not simulated in iRacing, but that is how slippery the track surface is right now for some unknown reason. And well, drivers are sliding left, right and centre. Those grip levels, they're not coming up as we expected, and I think several drivers are being caught out right now. As the tyres are warming up, they're expecting they can push quite aggressively. You can't push here at the Hungaroring unless you're feeling very lucky, or you've got the car set up for low grip level all the way through, just because there is no grip to be found out here. But as we do see our wounded driver there, Jim Fox, trying to get it back together. We do have 3 pro drivers now right at the back of the pack from 51st through to 54th. That's Fox, Aston, Catahos and also Fraser. Well, we'll see what they can do a bit later on. And speaking of Liam Fraser, this is what happened to him right at the start of the race. So this was lap number 1, in towards turn number 4. Keep your eyes out for the Corvette Z06. Battling side by side. Was that with Wayne Douglas? Well, he came across, got pinched there, and well, some would argue that Fraser cut across. I think that was in fact Peter Duke. My apologies. That was Peter Duke there, and you would imagine that for Liam Fraser, he will feel as though he was turned. Duke would argue he had nowhere to go. So it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. And well, what did that look like from Peter Duke's perspective? Let's see if we can get on board. Here it was. Fraser's on the right here. Duke's in the middle of the road. Oh, it pinches. That's not the best on board to give you an idea. Robin Milton picks his way through, and in the end was a biff on the back there of Duke as well. But you'd understand that Fraser will feel as though he's been cut down the side. Duke would argue, I was just on my race line. I can't go anywhere, but that's how tight it got between them. We then had this happen to Jason Hodgson only moments later. Now, this was the Phoenix Racing Green driver making his way out of turn number 5 and in towards 6. But what exactly happened there under braking? Ooh, concertina effect there. Everyone queued up and everyone was going very slowly on through. Oh my goodness, were they practically parking up there I think they were parking up because of the fact you had a too wide just in front of them going on, where that caused everyone to crawl to a halt, but not the way anyone expected. In fact, Cordy losing a good chunk of his car as a result of it. Rob Gregg the same. A lot of drama there, and we had this subsequently for Fotis Katehos as he made his way through the chicane. And the split track esports driver from Greece dropped off the curb, went into turn number 8, and the rear of the car not in a happy place and went around on him. Lap number 2, we had this for Robin Aston. And, well, Aston, in fact, the GPX Sim Sport Onyx driver, not quite sure what went wrong, but some damage on the car and just crawling along there. So Aston had it all go wrong for some unexplained reason. Jim Fox, meanwhile, this happened to him on lap number 3. This was into turn number 5. We saw the slide on the out. Oh, my good lord. Well, we thought it was just a slide loose. No, it was getting it wrong at turn number 4 into the barrier, ping-ponged off of it. And Fox, in the end, well, an absolute nightmare moment for him as we come back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the big incidents from the opening 3 laps. We've got a load of smoke going up there at the final corner. Not quite sure who that is for. I believe that might be for Jovan Hurag, who's gone around. There's a front bumper just lying on the start-finish straight there on the inside. We won't need the safety car to pick that one up. But what we are picking up here is it's going to be Fox versus Dean. And Max Dean in the black Ferrari trying to go around the outside. The Evo driver trying to make a bit of progress here. But right now, Fox is staying ahead and trying to get away. Just in front of them, Stuart Rice battling here with Gareth Newton. Newton, meanwhile, trying to hold position, but the GPX driver not being allowed to do so. And Rice, in the end, absolutely nailing that one and gains a place as Robin Milton's crawling across the grass there. So something's gone very wrong for Robin Milton. And, well, we'll have to get an explainer as to what's happened to him shortly. Also had something happen to Billy Brinkley whilst all this has been playing out. So there's nightmares up and down the running order at the moment. But from everything going wrong towards the middle back of the pack, further up the order in the battle inside the top 20 or the top 16 of the Pro class, this is Alan Baker ahead of Mark De Vries. Well, it does seem as though here things are relatively calm as De Vries looks for an opportunity to get involved a little bit more. What can you do at this point? Well, the main game is going to be to see if he can get a bit closer. As James Howarth into the pit lane, minus front bumper on his Aston Martin. That might explain why he's coming into the pits for repair work. There'll be a fast repair available, but that fast repair is going to be consumed and he's going to lose a lot of time. He can't really undercut it here, or at least that's not the theory. You would expect there's going to be a good number of drivers who go for undercuts, but you want to go a bit deeper into the race. Only 10 minutes complete. That is not going to be enough here on the fuel tank. They have 60% capped fuel tanks in terms of the percentage of fuel they can take in their cars, and therefore they are mandated to take a pit stop for fuel. Tyre changes are entirely optional, and what the normal theme has been is you synchronise the tyre changes to the amount of fuel you put in the car. If you need to put in plenty of fuel, then you end up taking all 4 tyres if it takes long enough, because fuel and tyres are done simultaneously. Meanwhile, if you don't have to take that much fuel, you normally only change 1 or 2 tyres, if any at all, and it will normally be the tyres on one side of the car, because otherwise if you change purely the fronts or purely the rears, you completely unsettle the grip balance of the car, particularly into medium speed corners. But right now, speaking of trying to cause an upset, that's Tim van den Ham in the Ferrari there from the Netherlands trying to look away up the inside of Bardwell, but Bardwell right now holding on in the Acura there. And, well, how intriguing. We have seen the Acura fall massively from grace over the last couple of seasons. Season 8, it really was one of the big popular cars to the grid. Season 9, it lost a lot of its popularity, and this season we have a few Acura runners out there, but by no means anywhere near as popular as it was in Season 9, let alone Season 8. And that was because the balance performance was heavily changed on it, particularly when it came to its capabilities in corners and also at low speed circuits. But as we do see Van den Ham continuing to hound after the back of Bardwell, absolutely on a mission here as we jump on board the gyrocam. And, well, the 103 driver here close, but not close enough to make a move at the moment. Sheesby, the best part of 7 tenths behind, will be looking at this as Van den Ham runs out a bit wide there. Dirtier, carrying the car out wide as he gets a bit greedy with the throttle pedal. He's going to have to be careful of that, of course. If he keeps repeating that, he's going to be picking up slowdown penalties for the misdemeanors. Alternative drive-through penalty, but takes a sneak peek up the inside of Bardwell. Bardwell calls his bluff and says, no, I won't. And, well, Peter Duke in front, meanwhile, seems to be struggling off these low-speed corners. And, in fact, look at that from Bardwell. He's had a monster run. Is he going to get it into turn number 2 here? He's going to go for it. Duke sees it coming. Does he pinch him? He does. A little bit of contact between the two of them, but Duke is escorted out wide. Now 2 wide, they go into turn number 3 here. Duke on the inside, Bardwell around the outside of Sparks. There's a rub between the two of them, and here comes Van den Ham. Van den Ham going up the inside now into turn number 4. Is he going to back out here? The answer is going to be no, he doesn't. Sheesby there as well. Sheesby gets his elbows out, and Peter Duke Duke. He's sent a little bit wide. Minus front bumper already. Oh, no, no, no. That's not the way you break into turn number 5. And that is Van den Ham who goes around Peter Duke. In the end, will pick the places back up. He lost because Dean Sheesby a little bit too energetic with the brake pedal there. And as a result, clipping the rear of Van den Ham. And it all goes wrong for the pair of them into turn 5. And suddenly, well, for a driver who made up all those places only moments ago, aka Jamie Bardwell, he'll be very glad now. It's all going forward for him and it's going backwards to the rest of the drivers behind him. But as the Acura driver here makes his way away from the calamity that's unfolded, well, all these drivers right now, I think they'll have to try and regroup and move onwards. But a bit further down that order, we do see Chris Jennings here for Axis Simsport Blue. He's trying to chase after another McLaren of Adam Smith. And in fact, it is the McLaren pack here. You've got Smith, Jennings, Young and Harris, all 4 McLaren drivers, all separated by 3.5 seconds from nose to tail, all in the Pro class, and they're battling for 18th place in the class. But as Smith makes his way on through the left-hander, we do have a slowdown from McNaughton, I can see on the timing tower there. So he's been a little bit cheeky with the track limits, and therefore he's having to bleed some time back. That most likely will be for the chicane. He's probably cut the apex curve a bit too high. But as we do see Jennings making his way out the final corner, well, Van den Ham's in the pit lane being repaired, so that's going to be a place gain for many a driver here. Well, on to another lap they go. We're not even 15 minutes into this race, but so far in 15 minutes of this season, we have had plenty of drama. And indeed, I think it's going to set the tone for what lies ahead over the remaining distance. But speaking of what's happening here, Peter Duke, they're letting teammate Douglas go around the outside. Duke minus a front bumper with the damage he's picked up. He's struggling out there at the moment, but he doesn't want to pit. He doesn't want to force himself into a 2-stop strategy, which of course means an extra pit stop, a lot more time lost. Starsmore looking one way, Van Zist looking also the other way, and that's going to get a very bit technical there between Van Zist and also Starsmore, and in the end, well, Van Zist trying to go around the outside, didn't work, and the Pro driver had to back off immediately. But my good lord, was that brave of him to try and do that. And well, in another world it may have worked, but definitely not in this instance. And well, Christopher Starsmore making sure his BMW is wide enough for 2 cars, not just one. And well, the BMW, one of the widest GT3s on this grid by default, they are wider than the road production car. But if you look at a BMW M4 on the road, you will notice it's a very wide car by default. And well, Starsmore definitely making himself incredibly wide. But from them, we look a little bit further up the order because we need to look to our Evo leader, and Simon Clifton right now. And definitely cruising a little bit at the front of the Evo class, running a very comfortable 7th place overall. And well, Steve Rubino, meanwhile, he has gained 7 places overall. He's running 2nd of the class, another Ford Mustang. Here's the Hobo Racing driver, and I think he'll be very happy with this. He has pulled away from the rest of the Evo field because he did only have 2 places between himself and Denny Ploger. But Ploger, since the start of the race, has fallen backwards a little bit by comparison in terms of the places gained, and is down in 25th, but 3rd of the Evo drivers, and has Dave Collier only 8 seconds behind at the moment. And Collier, I think, has got a bigger concern behind, and it is the concern of Rob Gregg, who's trying to look menacingly threatening here as they head in towards the final quarter. But as Greg continues to pursue, James Bostock is on the back of this group, and Bostock right now for the GPX Sinsport team, rebranded of course from their previous team, the Carme GP2 team of Season 9, and making their way down the start-finish straight with Bostock here in the draft. Can he find a way to make a move into turn number 1? And the answer is going to be no, not this time. He's way too far back, and well, this McLaren definitely does not seem to be the happiest of cars here at the Hungaroring, as he takes a very sideways run through the turn 1 hairpin, takes a lot of apex curve, and I think that lifted the rear of the car around. And well, you want a bit of apex, but not that much. Meanwhile, battle of 2 McLarens here. Here comes Katerhos versus Aston. Well, he's going to go up the inside here. Will the SSE driver a little bit oversteer, a bit more oversteer, and in the end gets it together. Robin Aston is probably thinking, okay, calm down, you've overtaken me. And I think Katerhos doesn't realise just how slippery that car is. But Aston right now, I think he'll be thinking to himself, okay, that happened, how do I get the place back for 27th in the Pro class? And well, he's going to have to get a bit closer if the flames spit out the back of both cars, but Aston seems to be going backwards. He may still have some remnant damage on the car from what happened earlier on in the race. But as they settle things down for at least a brief moment, we look back to your race leader of Menno Blum, and the Ferrari 296 driver here has opened up an advantage of 3 seconds. He's not necessarily the outright fastest driver on the circuit. That's Stephen Codman at the moment, 2nd place man in the Ford Mustang, but it really is Ford versus Ferrari at the very front of the field right now, and a further 3.2 seconds before you do get to Nick Stubb as the Vulcan Fastest by Glass Tech Racing driver makes his way down to turn number 3, and 3 different manufacturers inside the top 3 spots. And well, it's then 2 Ford Mustangs and a Ferrari following up with Hutchinson, Johnson and Loader. Speaking of David Hutchinson, here he is. And you can see he's got his teammate Mark Johnson immediately behind him here, so the two teammates trying to work together. But Vincent Lodder keeping them honest, and the STL Privateer, I think, will be looking at this and thinking, how do I get involved and cause a little bit of bedlam? And the idea being he wants to try and split the teammates as much as possible to gain some extra points, but also to make sure then they can't fuel save off the back of each other. Alternatively, Lodder might actually be using this as a fuel saving strategy, but it's very interesting to see that whilst he put it on pole by the best part of half a tenth, he's not on race leading pace right now. He was ambushed a little bit at the start by his teammate coming down to turn number 1 and turns 2 and 3 where they really battled hard, and I think in the end Lodder lost all the momentum, but Menno understandably wanted it just a little bit more at that point in the race. But Lodder right now has got to be a bit inventive here because he's just running behind the two Ford Mustangs. Saving fuel, yes, saving a bit of tyre life, also that, but is he losing overall race time? And the answer to that also seems to be yes at the moment, because he's almost 11 seconds off the leader now, and that is a big margin to close up here at the Hungaroring. But things are calming down at this point. We are coming towards the end of the first third of this 1 hour race, and it does mean we start to move towards a more strategic focus here, where all drivers now will be thinking more about what can they do on strategy. Unless you're James Fraser, then you're going to have to try and work this as Tim Van Ham makes his way around the outside of Fraser, and Fraser missing the front bumper there, and I don't think that's in solidarity with his brother Liam, who lost a good chunk of the Corvette on that number 1. I think he was involved in that big concertina moment into the chicane on the open lap, and that's cost him a front bumper. And well, right now he does have Matt Stays close behind. A bit further back, Max Dean was gaining, has fallen back a bit further, but here comes Stays, looking to the inside, can't quite find it. Has to back off for now as we jump on board with the Mercedes AMG driver. And will roaring his way from the right into left here at turn number 13. He does have up his inside. That's the move from Klaas Vellen. Vellen's there, and you'll suddenly see Vellen pop out from behind the timing tower. And Klaas Vellen takes the place there, and I think Stays deciding, well, he was thinking about going into the pits and then realises that Fraser's come into the pits. So he thinks, you know, I'll do the opposite as the Flatline Racing driver makes his way around. And are we in the pit stop window now? Arguably we are, but it still requires a lot of fuel saving. The earliest we can expect drivers to pit will be around 17 to 18 minutes into the race distance. But that is a very, very risky strategy, because what you're essentially doing is you're going to be loading up the car with as much fuel as possible. You're going to have a very heavy car, and then you've got to drive it for almost the best part of 3/4 of the race when you consider the final lap in terms of race time. It's a tough strategy to pull off because the tyres are going to feel horrific at the end of a 40-minute stint compared to how they feel at the end of a very short 20, well, not even 20-minute stint in fact. But we will see what Fraser's able to pull off. Indeed, there could be some surprises there. Unfortunately, we have had Billy Brinkley into the pit lane quite recently. Our last run out so Brinkley's in the pit lane. We still have all 54 starters out there, should be pointed out. But right now, Mark Van Malken is currently last of runners on circuit in 53rd, who's not gone to the pits. He has taken a pit stop, but I believe Brinkley's into the pits for a second time today. And, well, just not a happy day. He's had to tow to the pits, in fact, due to damage picked up in the car. And we'll wait and see if Brinkley makes his way back out once again. It's not looking to be a good day for him. Meanwhile, Robert McNaughton, he continues to head around in 15th place of the Evo category. As he does so, who's behind him? That's Jim Fox, who's on a recovery drive after his big run at turns 4 and 5 on lap number 4. And all these drivers right now, 2 different classes, and I think both these drivers will try to negotiate each other as soon as humanly possible. Speaking of negotiations, there goes Cateos up the inside of Sineo Alvarez. Alvarez goes very deep there, and Robin Aston's going to go around the outside of him now. And well, the Evo driver here lets the pros on through. Smart drive from Alvarez, to be fair. He doesn't want to fight them. He knows he doesn't need to fight them. And all the drivers have been given plenty of information to tell them who is a pro driver versus an Evo driver. So that's why you shouldn't be surprised necessarily if you do see particularly Evo drivers letting the pros go. But as they continue onwards, well, from them we come back to a bit of fighting, because we come to the McLaren pack, albeit one of them is an imposter here, and well, among us is a Corvette, and it is the Corvette of Robin Pownier. Now, Pownier, of course, had quite the story of Season 9 in the Corvette Z06 GT3R. He perhaps had one of the most unexceptional seasons. Now, that's not me being rude about him, let me explain, as he rides all over the back there of none other than Philip Harris into the chicane, and for his misdemeanors, he picks up a chip in the windshield. Pownier had a rather unexceptional season from the outside because of the fact he was Mr. Consistent throughout the entirety of the season. It's why he finished 3rd in the championship behind James Bostock and Dean Sheetsby, of course, your Premier Championship winner. But what was interesting about Pownier is the fact that as the season went on, he gradually got faster and faster, and in a Corvette that nobody expected to be quick, he proved to be very quick and even picked up some great podium finishes. He tries to poke his way past Philip Harris. So that's why what we say about the Sim Coach driver is keep your eyes out for him, because at the start of the season, don't expect too much necessarily, but as the season goes on, if his form in Premier of Season 9 is to be the marker of what's to come, he's going to be a driver who's suddenly going to find a lot of pace as that season makes its way through the distance. Of course, with the tutelage of the sim coach professionals, including the likes of Andrew Dawson, who raced on grid in Season 9 as well, you can imagine that Powney will be getting tuition week in and week out, and as an ambassador for the team, and when he makes his way on down, he'll be very happy to see how high he can go. That's a mistake there from Harris, and well, you don't look a gift horse in the mouse, as the saying goes. And well, the idea is now the 17 driver's got to defend into the inside of turn number 2. Powney will have to try and find the grip in that Corvette, and he does so, and he puts the McLaren behind him as Harris there decides to back out of it and not fight it as much as he would like to, and I think that's because Jason Hodgson is on the back of this, and Hodgson is perhaps arguably the bigger threat of the two. And up the hill and in towards the left-hander at turn number 4. The reason we say Hodgson is a bigger threat, he's gained more places since the start compared to the man in front, and Hodgson right now getting very close to the back of Harris here, as Harris seems to be all out of sorts, and the Phoenix Racing driver, well, he's breathing so closely behind as we jump on board with the Phoenix Racing Green 173 McLaren, and well, you can see there right and left through that chicane, there's very little between them, but the Constantino, of course, makes it look as though they're a lot closer for them to suddenly pan back out. But through that right-hander of turn number 9 they go, and in towards the left of turn 10. Well, the body language there, Hodgson turning in much earlier, trying to get rid of that dirty air, very uncomfortable, and you can see really having to fight with the front end, as is Harris, funny enough, behind Powney's car, really struggling for front end rotation there. Hodgson goes all in, that is a send and a half, my good lord, he did that from a different postcode, and going through turn number 12, well, right now Harris says, if you're going to do it, I'm going to do it back to you coming into 13, and Hodgson says, right, game on, as they make the way through, but Harris there giving as good as he's given, and well, respect given and respect retained between the two of them. They are very aware of each other, and it's brilliant racing. Two very different lines there through turn 14. Harris going for the V-cut line, meanwhile Hodgson taking the more symmetrical U-shape, but in fact Jason Hodgson gains more time there. As a result, now firmly in the toe, looks down to the inside into turn number 1. What can Harris do here? As Hodgson's going to be on his inside, and I think the answer is going to be not much. He goes to the switchback, does Harris, and he's all over the back of Hodgson. Half attempt is going to be the delta by the time they get to the braking zone in towards turn number 2. But then he backs off as James Howarth now starts to encroach behind them. And remember, Howarth had to take a start of the race pit stop given the damage he picked up in the opening couple of laps. So therefore, he is all the way down here in 24th place, and he will have to pit again. So therefore, you can imagine that this is really where he's fighting for right now. He's not on a huge undercut strategy, is where to understand it. Whilst all this has been happening, a brilliant dicey fight between these drivers, what about in the Evo class? Well, Andy Chell, he has fallen a bit further down the order since we last saw him, because of course he was looking quite happy in 5th place in Evo. Now he's got Sinui Alvarez right behind him, the fight for 11th in Evo class. And what happened? Well, here's the story on lap number 6. Now this was a little while ago, and it was Chell at the time heading through turn number 12. That was Howarth behind him. Did the two of them ever coming together? We'll see. And the braking, yes, they did. That explains why Howarth had to pick up repair work on the car, and Chell was turned around. Now, Chell would argue that Howarth left it very late, and therefore he turned in because he didn't know what Howarth was doing. Howarth might argue, well, the door was left open, I had the right to go, why did he turn in on me? But two very different perspectives there. I think both drivers will learn from that one after the race, and they'll have a little chat about it. I can't imagine they'll have too much of an argument. They're both civil drivers, both James and Andy, and both willing to learn from mistakes and incidents they're involved in. But as we come back to your live racing, it also has been a bit of drama for Matthew Hunter, and well, the Simcast Racing Team UK driver in the BMW M4 Evo. He's all the way down in 14th place of the Evo class right now. Well, he's 43rd on the road. He is being chased by Jim Fox, a pro driver, and Robert McNaughton is 2.5 seconds further behind. On the road is Paul Maffey, who's 2 seconds clear, and Paul Maffey, in fact, has had a very good start to this race. He's up 4 places in Evo, having started 17th, and the Scotsman right now trying to go a little bit further, chasing after Sinui Alvarez, albeit Alvarez is 13 seconds further ahead, so it's going to be a gap to climb. You never know, he might be able to make it happen as Denny Ploger into the pit lane. That's early. Would not have expected him to come in this early, but he's gone for the undercut here. To be fair, we are now 25.5 minutes into this race, so we are almost to the midway point here. Time is absolutely flying by. Also, there you can see Martin Brandon into the pit lane, and as Ploger makes his way down, where does he come out? This is actually, it's not bad for Ploger. He does come out behind Robin Milton, who has completed 1 pit stop already. We would expect that Milton might have to do another pit stop, given the fact that he did have a relatively short first stop, and it was very early in the race. But Ploger right now if he times this right, he's going to have clear air all the way, and I wouldn't be surprised if Plugger's going to gain a lot of time and also cement that third place in Evo class, if not get a bit closer to second place running class, Steve Rubino. So we need to keep an eye out for the MJK Sim Racing drive, because whilst he may not be 100% fit to race condition, I'll tell you one thing right now, I think he's feeling a bit of confidence. He's really nailing this on strategy, which is impressive, and that harks us back, of course, to what was his performance at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit in Season 9, where he nailed everything absolutely spot on. He was unstoppable in Evo that day. There was also mixed conditions, to be fair, but Plugger knew exactly when to change the tyres and knew when to come in, and he's done it again. He's brought himself clear track and not much pressure from behind, and that's exactly what you want when you do go for a bit of an undercut strategy. Meanwhile, we come back into the pro class, and here comes Howarth trying to take another place up the inside of Philip Harris, and Howarth on the recovery drive here after his contact with Andy Chell, and well, we can see that Harris is not giving up here. Harris is not just a piece of furniture on the grid, that's what he's arguing as they come down. That's going to get very close. Howarth goes around the outside. Harris forces the issue though, and he's going to get a nose ahead here. Does he clear Howarth into turn 3? Howarth tries to squeeze his way back in, and well, I like the commitment there from Philip Harris. That was to James Howarth, him saying, you either give up the place or we are both in an instant, and I'm taking you to the steward's room immediately and putting you in the naughty chair. Because what he did there was got himself 90% ahead of Howarth, and he said, right, I'm turning in. If your nose is still there, you're making contact with me, and as far as I'm concerned, you're the one who's caused it, because you are on an optimal line. And Howarth immediately backed out there. He knows what Harris's game is, which is forcing him away. And well, it's bold racing between them, but sometimes that's what you've got to do. And Howarth right now look at this and think, okay, gloves off, now I've got to try and find a bit more of an inventive way through as we ride on board the dashboard here of the 154 Aston Martin, and the Dexterous Motorsport Zemix machine. Lovely livery, lovely exit at turn number 11, flames of the McLaren spit out there, but right now it's boiling hot inside this cockpit, or at least Howarth will feel that way as he's trying to turn up the heat and look for a move. Couldn't quite get it there into turn number 11. Goes for the look into 12 and 13, but it's not going to work that time in the turn 13 hairpin. And you can see just poking, prodding there, really trying to rattle the wasp's nest here of Philip Harris. And Harris there going defensive into 14. Howarth meanwhile goes deep intentionally to build up the speed. Off camera, Peter Duke is in the pit lane as I look out my commentator booth window. So he's making his way on down. He's going to drop a long way down the order, but this may be for the best of Peter Duke in terms of he gives himself the undercut. But on board, Howarth here looking to the inside, building up the revs. Too wide they enter. Harris in the end has to go deep. He can't shut the door this time. And well, Howarth there playing Harris back at his own game, which is, well, what if I put myself on the inside and you try turning in at an apex, which is going away from you? And that is how Howarth gets it back. But he goes very deep there into turn number 2. Does he bring it back together in time? He does, but Harris looks at this, and both drivers here absolutely pushing each other to the limit. It's absolutely classic GT3 racing. Howarth right now finding up into 19th place of the pro runners, and we'll be very happy with that one. And Philip Harris proving to be a very strong defensive driver, and that is something which will be going into Harris' mind memory bank for the remainder of the season. Speaking of movements here, this is Robin Power here trying to find a way past none other than, I believe, that is not Rochon directly in front. Young is a bit further up the road. I think that is Max Dean, who is now almost a lap down on Power here in the all-black Ferrari, running in 50th place. Yes, it is. I've just had it confirmed. And in fact, in 51st place, then Power up the inside. Blue flag's waving there, but Dean doesn't know exactly where to go. Understandable there if you're Max Dean, and I can't complain at that. I don't think anybody can, because it is an absolute nightmare section of circuit, that middle sector, and the fact it's only got enough room for 2 cars wide if you're offline, the pair of you. So I can imagine he's holding racing line here until he can get out the way and feel comfortable to do so. And well, credit where it's due to. When the blue flag's wave, it's not an automatic you have to get out of the way immediately. It's when it's safe to do so. And Dean, if he doesn't feel safe to do so, doesn't have to, as he makes his way into the pit lane and will roaring his way on in here. He'll give himself some clear track, and well, he'll put on what will be his second half of the race in short order. But looking to Paul Maffey, he's got Jim Fox and Jakub Krafik behind him. And well, it is getting close there as the lights start to come on. The sunset gradually coming on down. I suspect we won't quite be at night time by the end of this race, but we will be losing the ambient light. That was the whole purpose of the sunset settings. And as Fox and Krafik get a bit close to each other, the Porsche driver there having a bit of a sideways moment there, chasing after what is in front of him, a Ferrari. And in fact, that is Menno Blom, the race leader, is picking his way on through here and is looking very quick, but the only problem is now he's got a lot of traffic. And well, if your name's Stephen Codman, Nick Stubb or David Hutchison, I wouldn't be surprised if they all quickly dive to the pits soon, because this is now getting very painful for Bloom. And if he doesn't come into the pits, he's going to lose time here. I think his gambit is he wants to go long, sacrifice some time now to give himself a much shorter final stint. Codman and Stubb, they both stay out. They do not come on in. Anybody who comes in at this point, they could gain a lot of time, because look at the circuit map, and what you'll notice is our leaders, they could theoretically come out between what would be none other than 9th place in the Pro class and 10th place. There is a window for them to potentially pop out into, if my mental mathematics is correct. Vincent Lodder, meanwhile, he's chasing down Mark Johnson, but don't be fooled by the McLaren in front. That's a lap down car, or a car they're trying to put a lap on, and that is Tom Cordy there, and well, splitting the seas around him, and Lodder trying to do that to get up the inside of Johnson, but Johnson saw it coming and said, well, I'm just going to take my natural racing line, you do you. And well, the Ford Mustang driver from Axis Simsport absolutely nailing the hold onto 5th place at the moment. And well, he's still got a way to go, it would seem, before the strategies. We do see the good smile racing machine of Martin Brandon pulling to the side, lets them all go, and then up the hill now. Well, that is going to be an opportunity here for what will be none other than Tom Cordy to get on through. He does! Hold up a second, that's gone round, and that is the 176 that's gone very sideways, and Mark Johnson has lost it, but Mio Cordy now under pressure, a lap down with Martin Brandon looking for a move on him, and we're heading towards the chicane. Brandon has to back off there, there's no way through. Meanwhile, going around the outside, Paul Maffey, that is Liam Fraser who seizes on the chaos there, and Maffey thinking, I think that Fraser was part of the lead lap pack, when in fact he was a lap down much like Maffey, so that's a change of overall position. But Mark Johnson went very sideways for a brief moment, and we almost had a multi-car collision there, but thankfully everyone was observant of what was going on. But many of you may be asking is, how exactly did Mark Johnson end up sideways at turn 4? And here's the replay. So up the hill he went, he did have now Vincent Lodder right behind. Into the corner he went wide, put the right inside tyres out onto the runoff area. There's no grip out there at all, plus also a V-shaped dip in the curbing, and that's what sent the Ford Mustang on around there. Overloaded the steering versus the tyre grip, and the car went completely sideways, and then trying to find a move around. It was Jared Love there. Love in the end couldn't quite get it done, but gained a lot of time as a result. But back to your live racing we come then, and we're firmly into the second 30 minutes of this race now. We've still got time to go, and with time still on the clock, what next is going to go? That's the challenge, or the question. Well, Liam Fraser here, Corvette driver who ended up in that lap 1 altercation. He's trying to recover his way through, but of course he had to tow to the pits. And in doing so, take that fast repair. He does have to take a pit stop at some point, so he will need to put fuel in the car. He's going to drop a long way down with what we're said and done, but he's keeping his spirits as high as humanly possible, and who can blame him? He's behind Jim Fox, looks one way, looks the other way, and Fox right now keeping at bay, at least for now, as they scramble over 30th place over their class, and will through the right hand they go, and up the inside there goes one of your lead lap drivers. That is the Vulcan Fastest by Glass Tech Mercedes of Nick Stubb. But Stubb finds himself elbowed out there by Fox coming into the chicane. I think that was a bit wishful thinking from Stubb, to be fair, trying to go around the outside into the chicane versus Fox. I think Fox said to him, no, you wait your turn, and as they make the way through the S's, well now Fraser's going to be all over the back of Stubb, because he knows that if Fox lifts to give Stubb an opportunity, Fraser wants to be right there. There's a bit of smoke going up, that's a car off the road, couldn't quite see who that was. Well, I'll try and find out. I believe that might have been Max Dean, but oh goodness me, Nick Stubb in battling with Fox, and Fox right now does not want to give way. Fraser looking up the inside here, and he knows why, because Fraser's going to actually go all in, and Liam Fraser sees an opportunity and moves very nicely there up into 29th place of the pro drivers. It may only be for a handful of points, but to be fair, points are all worth it at the end of the day. Meanwhile, a bit further up the running order in the pro class, Ross Young. Well, we haven't talked too much about Ross recently, and well, as he makes his way around, he's enjoying a very good run at the moment, albeit yet to take a pit stop, much like Pownier behind him. However, the point still stands that the 102 driver here, all the way up into 17th place overall, from a 27th place start, or what has been from 24th all the way to 15th place in the pro class. So he's enjoying a bit of a highlight reel here, albeit Robin Pownier, he's looking one way, James Howarth the other way, so it is a little bit of a bottleneck behind Young at the moment. And we're going through turn 13. It's another switchback there from, however, he definitely does look at the V-shaped approach, trying to go for a very late apex. Feels as though he can get the power down as he makes his way out the corner, trying to get as much out of the Aston Martin as possible, whereas the two cars in front of him are much more conservative in their runs out the bend, and that's the difference between them. But onwards they go, and towards the next set of corners, it will be very shortly, but it'll be a braking zone first, and what's going to come of it this time? Nothing's the answer. They all stay at line astern. But the Hungaroring right now, very tricky circuit to overtake it. We have seen that time and time again today. But all the drivers here looking for opportunities, that's also certain, and not afraid to go for them when the time's right. That's the car going very deep there. That was a BMW M4 making a bit of a ham sandwich of a braking zone. That's Robin Milton, who went very deep into the corner. The Dexterous Motorsports driver, and well, the 31 in the Evo class right now. He's got Pioneer right behind him, and well, Howarth's on the outside. So Howarth can't capitalise on this as much as he would love to. Not that we're saying that Milton has set this up intentionally. There's no malice meant in this at all. He made a mistake, but as they make their way out of turn number 5, what I think if it had been the other way round in terms of Pioneer and Howarth, in terms of their placement on the circuit, Howarth would have been absolutely smiling at that one. Too wide into the chicane they go. That's bold of Pioneer, but he wants to get on through, and Milton right now is going to have to hold that inside line. He's got nowhere else to really go or lift off the throttle, and well, he lets Pioneer go in the end, but now Howarth is on the back of him, and I think Howarth's going to try and find a way through very quickly. I think he's going to be on the radio to his teammate to say, let me go, and immediately Milton finally finds a way to let Howarth go, but it has cost Howarth a bit of time versus Pioneer, and now he's got to try and regain that time as quickly as he can. But with pit stops continue to play on out, a driver who moves a bit further up the overall order as a result of it, it's Simon Clifton, who now moves up into 5th place. He is your Evo leader, but he has yet to pit in Evo, it should be pointed out. So he's going to fall a bit further down, but right now definitely looking towards what will be a top 10 overall performance come the end of this race. An absolute monster start to this season from the Evo driver, and establishing himself perhaps as an early favourite if this trend is to be believed in a week's time. We'll see, however, if that's going to be the case, as most drivers now are coming into the pit lane. And indeed, only out of our top 10, we have only got one driver who has pitted. It's Stephen Codman. He did decide to go for the undercut for Axis Simsport, and the number 39 driver, in doing so, where is he going to put himself at the end of all this is the question, and we will see, because he was the best part of 3 seconds or so behind Menno Blom when he did come into the pit. He has found a bit of traffic on his way. Adam Smith is right behind, but Smith has yet to take a pit stop, so therefore Smith is on a different race by comparison. Codman there running a bit wide coming out of turn number 5. He's got to be careful of that. Smith, meanwhile, looking for a jinx to the inside for a brief moment, thinking about it and then thinking against it, and well, Menno Blom is now into the pit, so he makes man in from the lead of the race. Is this strategy going to have to work out? Remember, Blom did come up against a lot of traffic. He was the first driver naturally to find the traffic, given he was the race leader. Nick Stubbs in behind, and so is Vincent Lodder. Jared Love is still out there. We'll have to wait and see what Jared does, and he makes way into the pit lane, so I don't think he can get the fuel tank to go any further. They have made it go the best part of 39 minutes, to be fair. That's what we typically expect. Clifton's in, Bardwell's in, and I won't be surprised if Starsmore and also Adam Baker, they both coming in very shortly. But Codman is the man we need to keep an eye on, and here he is, and he makes his way around. Where is he going to emerge versus what will be Menno Blom? Well, Blom is making his way out the pit lane now. There he goes. So he heads down, but remember he's on pit limiter at the moment. He can only release the pit limiter once he crosses the blue line. He does so, and well, it is going to be a very comfortable return to lead for Menno Blom. Stephen Codman, meanwhile, has lost an absolutely huge amount of time as a result of this. Adam Baker is between them, and Adam Baker's gone another lap, as has Robin Pioneer. They've been able to save a 23rd lap's worth of fuel. My good lord. They've extended that fuel tank and then some, but they're confident in themselves. I can tell you that, both Adam Baker and Robin Pioneer. The only 2 drivers who've yet to pit to take their fuel stop. Andy Chell, in fact, also adds his name to that list of individuals. If he clears the pit lane entry this time, he is just making his way past it right now. But definitely some surprises there in terms of how long you can make that fuel tank go. But Codman, the key point being, he is now the best part of 6.5 seconds behind his main rival of Menno Blom, and in fact in 9.5 seconds, let me correct myself there, so Codman has lost out massively as a result of the pit stops, and well, Menno Blom has somehow absolutely nailed this despite finding a lot of traffic. But as Blom tries now to saunter off into the distance and claim the first win of the season over on the pro class, what is happening elsewhere? Well, Jamie Bardwell, he picks off Simon Clifton. Clifton now down to 10th place overall, but no change in class position, so Clifton won't be too upset about that. He's now got Van den Ham behind him as Clifton, and indeed Sheesby is continuing to march onwards. As for what is your Evo class, we have got a little bit of an altercation building here between Stuart Rice and Martin Brandon. They've both pitted, they both crossed that timing line. Matt Stace is in, as is Matthew Hunter, so therefore it means what there was a battle for 10th place in the Evo class, suddenly comes a battle for 7th place, and there goes Brandon all the way out the inside versus the Aston Martin driver of Rice, and that's going to be straightforward, at least initially. He's got Fox and Chell in front. Andy Chell, who took his pit stop, he's trying to hold on, but Fox up the inside. Chell right now will be looking at his rear mirrors and thinking, okay, hold up a second, is that the Evo pair behind me? I've suddenly got to work a bit harder here as we ride on board and look back from the rear of the number 5 Quatermass Motorsport machine. He's got a lot of pressure brewing here, and he's trying to hold on for 6th place. And if he's able to pull this off on his first round of racing behind the Aston Martin, if we exclude the pre-season event, I think he'll be very happy at this one, because he had a bit of a difficult day in the office at what was, excuse me, the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg the best part of a week ago. But here today, he's had a much happier day of it. And in fact, we are seeing classic Andy Chell, which is, he may not be the fastest in terms of qualifying pace, but he definitely knows how to put a race together here. And he is a bit of an origami expert with regards to what is crafting races. But as he heads on around, we do say hello there to Brad Races, who is cheering on Young, and that being Ross Young. And he says, doesn't look like he's spun yet. Well, definitely, I believe Ross Young has not had a spin, but he's definitely trying to move a bit further up the order when he can. And we'll find Mr. Young in due course for you folks. But as I try to head on through, Chell right now stabilising the gap to Martin Brandon. And in fact, Stuart Rice has had an off track whilst I've been looking away for a brief moment at some statistics. And well, it's now a battle between these two. What exactly happened to Rice? Here's the replay to explain, folks, because it was only seconds ago and Stuart Rice ejected himself from this battle. Now, it was for the S's sequence, made his way through turn 8 into 9. Does the car step loose at 9? Yes, it does. Oh my goodness, it snapped entirely loose and Rice into the barrier there, completely lost it. And goodness, that just goes to show you slightly worn tyres there and a little bit of an aggressive foot on the throttle pedal. And with Stuart Rice, it's all gone from good to bad to disastrous in the space of that moment. But we come back at a good time as Martin Brandon got on the inside of Chell in towards turn 1. But Chell back on the inside now into turn number 2. They come down in towards turn number 3. And as they roll the way through, Martin Brandon trying to find a way into 6th place in the Evo class. But it's not happening at the moment. Andy Chell making his Aston Martin nice and wide and managing this incredibly well. Meanwhile, speaking of other battles, Hutchison versus Stubb. They're fighting over 4th place overall and in pro. That is going to be Stubb on the outside there. Hutchison on the inside. There's contact between the two of them. I think the Mustang might have drifted a little bit wide there due to understeer. And I don't think Stubb had anywhere to go at that point other than either go off the road to the barrier or end up in contact. And I think that's why David Hutchinson now carries on. 9, I think it's going to be a stewardship inquiry after that one, should Stubb report it. But the drivers make the way on around. We'll try and get a replay of that when we can. But for Nick Stubb, that's going to be an absolutely frustrating moment. He rejoins it in 5th. He's still ahead of Jared Love, but I think he'll be kicking himself for the fact that right now he could be in 4th place, potentially chasing down the podium from Vincent Lodder. Speaking of Lodder, he's jumped up to 3rd as a result of the pit stops. He has found a way to cut past both Hutchison and Stubb. And also, I believe, have we had... Well, Mark Johnson was involved in that instance, so Johnson fell backwards. So Lodder's moved from 6th to 3rd as a result of strategy and consistency. So it could be a double podium for the Ferraris from SimRacing Team Lowlands here. And Stephen Codman could be the one who spoils the party of making it a 1-2. Unless Lodder can find a way to cut down 4 seconds over the remaining 17 minutes of the race if you include the final lap. We will see, but from the theory, let's come back to the reality. And here's the reality of what happened between David Hutchison and Nick Stubb. Now, this was coming down in towards turn number 2, and, well, both drivers went on in, and I think, in fact, was there an initial bit of contact between the two on entry? Because Hutchison's car looks very sideways there. Can we get a bit more of an extended replay of this? I think we can. Can we get the on-board, potentially, with Hutchison? Yes, we can. So here he goes into the braking zone. Now, keep in mind, Stubbs on his outside. Oh, goodness me. I think there was a bit of initial contact there based on the way the steering suddenly snapped on Hutchison. If Stubbs came across, and that completely changed the dynamic of how the instant played out. Very interesting one between them. Not pointing fingers either way. I think both drivers, they'll look back at that one and think they both could have done something different. But it'll be interesting to see how that one goes after the race. But back to live pictures. And what we do see is Mark DeVries looking for a move here, and Mark Johnson. So SimRacing Team Lowlands' Ferraris all coming live in the second half of this race, if it's not Menno Bloem. And right now, the two teammates, I think, wanting to achieve what the leading that driver of the team is achieving, which is make up places and try and get as high as possible before the race is done. That's height in terms of places there, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you of a red light district disposition, you'll know exactly what I mean when I say the alternative height in the Netherlands, and I won't go any further because we need to keep this PG. But as he makes his way in towards turn number 4 and in towards 5, with Mark de Vries right now, that's not the way you go as he goes to the grass there at turn number 5. Bit too much momentum, I think blindsided a bit by trying to find a way round the outside of Mark Johnson, and in the end, well, de Vries gets away with that one as Adam Baker and Victor Van Zeist will be looking at this right now and thinking, okay, is the Ferrari struggling? And more particularly if your name is Van Zeist as he heads in towards turns 8 and 9. Well, he's one of 2 Porsches here. These are the 2 lead Porsches in the overall race. And well, it goes to show you that even though it's a circuit that would normally favour the Porsche, well, the balance of performance says it doesn't quite favour it here today. And well, Adam Baker and Van Zeist pushing each other onwards in the fight for 12. And that's overall, but a length in class, because of course you do have to keep in mind you have the leading Evo driver of Clifton up in 8th place. But coming in towards turn number 13, what can he do here? Not much, and I would imagine with the amount of rear wing they're running right now, this dirty air is going to feel very painful because of the fact, high downforce circuit here at the Hungaroring, it's normally a maximum downforce circuit. There's no real value in chipping off a bit of rear wing. Only really gain a little bit of time perhaps on the start-finish straight, but it'll be only 1 or 2 miles an hour if you take a click of rear wing off the car. But what you gain for that, you theoretically lose a lot, particularly in that middle sector. So with everybody running max rear wing, it then comes down really to being gutsy under overtakes and trying to find a way to offset the dirty air. You can do that by moving the brake bias rearwards. It gives you more natural rotation in the car, but it also makes the car much more unsettled, particularly when you do come off the brakes and little dabs of the brakes, which you require in the middle half of the circuit. That's where the rear end really jolts around. And that's where you've got to be careful of the brake bias settings of these GT3s. And that's why Van Zeist right now, as much as he'd like to get close, he's falling backwards because the dirty air is just pushing him away. But he has Christopher Starswell not too far behind. 1 second here to the Simcast Racing Team UK BMW. And Starswell right now the highest placed BMW M4 Evo out there in 14th. Very happy with his performance so far, I suspect. And he'll be hoping for a little bit more before all is said and done. But speaking of things being said and done, it's not said and done here for Jamie Bardwell because he's got Clifton and Sheesby closing on him. And the Acura driver there really struggling coming out of turn number 11 as the Acura run out of tyre life here. Well, we do know the Acura is a very, very unstable car in the rear end now. You really do have to tame it as Nick Stubb is into the pit lane with a black flag, and that will be a drive-through penalty for Nick Stubb. I believe he's picked up 1 too many instant points, and the off-tracks here might be starting to accumulate for several drivers, and that could mean 1 or 2 contacts or 1 off-track, and it could be the difference between you finishing where you currently stand and being demoted down the order. But Stubb suddenly relinquishes what would be a run for a top 5 finish, and he gives it over to David Hutchison and Jared Love. And well, Jamie Bardwell right now is fighting for 6th, but Simon Clifton's up the inside, and we can't quite find it there. The Mustang not as strong on the brakes compared to its rivals in the GT3 category, so Clifton there went onto the brakes only to find out he's not going to be able to make things happen. But Jamie Bardwell and Will Torres absolutely taking the words from our mouth there, doing a phenomenal run, having gained 11 places in the Pro Class since the start of the race, 12 overall, having started all the way down in 18th place. He's delivering right now as the Acura driver, and whilst he may be up against it here in the closing stages, he managed to go on the defensive. He's been an absolutely phenomenal run here, it must be said, and if he can qualify a little bit higher next time out, I wouldn't be surprised here if we're looking potentially at top 5 finishes for this man, if not a podium. But for now, he's got to try and hold on to 6th for a little bit longer, and it is going to be the question of whether he can keep Clifton behind him. Now for Simon Clifton, this is a bit of an awkward position to be in because I suspect the 41 Ford Mustang driver here as your Evo leader, he might want to try and put one over a couple of pro drivers. However, Dean Sheesby, he has his patience. I can tell you that. Dean Sheesby, a very different driver compared to the Season 8 Sheesby. The Season 9 Sheesby, we got to see peak Dean Sheesby, and I think we're seeing that again here today. He sends the signal there to Clifton, which is, look, I'm looking up your inside, get out of the way. Do we really need to be fighting? I think Clifton says, you're going to have to pass me. There's no expectation for the Evo driver to let the pro go, and Nick Stubb now all over the back of this and looking onwards, I think thinking to himself, how can I get a place back or multiple places back that I've just given away for a drive-through penalty? As meanwhile, Tim van den Ham has picked up a drive-through penalty for track limits, so he heads on through in 23rd at the moment. He won't be 23rd for much longer. He's going to go a long way down the order. I wouldn't be surprised if that puts him all the way down to 33rd place behind James Howarth, given the fact that Howarth is only the best part of 24 seconds behind. That's going to hurt massively as Van den Ham thinks about the move on Harris and then realises what's it going to be worth, and the answer unfortunately is not much. But as they come back, we come back to Sheesby and Clifton. Sheesby around the outside of Simon Clifton, so Clifton lets it go. Stubb now on the outside. He decides to go for it again. He takes the risk up the inside into turn 3, but then backs off there 9. Clifton was never going to let that go. So Stubb right now being made to wait a little bit longer. But credit where it's due to Stubb. He's not afraid to try and tease out potential moves, but I wouldn't be surprised here if right now Simon Clifton's taking the approach of when they get alongside me in a sensible place, I'll let it go. But until then, we're going racing. And Stubb runs out a bit wide there at turn 5, takes all the exit curb, and well, that exit curb does have a bump in the middle of it, funny enough, and that caused the car to be pulled further wide. So you have to be careful with the curbs around here. They're not always the nicest things to drive on. Comes through the middle sector. We'll start close, but close enough to think about a move as we jump on board the MJK SimRacing Mercedes. And what a day it's been for Mercedes drivers. And they've definitely shown they've got a lot of pace, not as quick as the Ferraris necessarily, but definitely race winning pace later on in the season. And Stubb there right now through that right-hander, and where does seem as though the Dutchman, as much as he can get close enough, he's not going to be close enough to look for the move this time around. But we're on his way through the corners there, staying close to the back of Sheesby. And in fact, Clifton's backed off there, gone out wide of the corner. Now a double check. Oh, goodness me, Stubb there. A lot of oversteer. He fights the car again. And well, as he does so, Stubb gets it back together only in the nick of time. But goodness me, I don't think that could have gone any more sideways there from Stubb. And well, just to show you just how on edge the car is, as the Vulcan Fasteners and Glass Tech Racing driver has to keep wrangling the car together as he makes his way on around. But as he does so, well, from Stubb, it is going to be all about the moving forward here, no question about it. But now can he get a bit closer again to Clifton and find a way through? We will wait and see. As we do, I believe there that right now we do have a bit of a closing presence from behind, and that will be Mark Johnson, who's 5 seconds back. He's trying to get even close to this and trying to get involved a little bit more. We'll see what he can do before all is said and done in this race, ladies and gentlemen, as our overlay just briefly refreshed itself there. I believe a slight glitch, and it has been resolved. But coming around then, and from them we look to Jason Hodgson, and Hodgson right now, what's he doing? Well, he finds himself in the throes of a battle with Robin Milton, Ross Young and himself. And these three have been together. We've said before, it's the game of the odd one out. One of these cars is not like the other, and it's the Corvette of Robin Milton ahead of the two McLarens of Young and Hodgson. And in fact, Ross Young falling a bit further backwards there as they come on around. What's going to happen from here is going to be up to Jason Hodgson. Does he try and find a move? The answer is no. But Young right now will know that the pressure is building for 17th place in the Pro class. But everything's happening in Pro. What about in the Evo class? Well, not too much is happening in the Evo at the moment. All the battles have calmed down, it must be said. And in the fight for third, it is Dave Collier ahead of Denny Ploger. Ploger was jumped in the pits by Collier. So therefore, it does mean that Ploger might be missing out on a third place finish here, but the flip side of the coin being that Collier, I think, will be very happy to be taking his first podium of the season, and Ploger just to take a fourth place. I think, given the circumstances, then he will not be complaining too much at that. So we're looking at Robin Aston chasing after Fortis Katehos as they come through the middle sector, and that's the fight for 22nd in the Pro class. Heading on around, well, from them we look a little bit further down to some of our heroes further down the field. David Pilt just still out there at the moment, enjoying his racing. But hold the phone, folks. We've had a moment for Nick Stubb, I believe, and Stubb has fallen a bit further down the order. Oh, goodness me. In fact, he's fallen a long way down the order as the field has to segue its way around Stubb. He's gone around there at turn number 3 as the Vulcan Fasteners by Glass Tech Racing driver. I don't know how on earth that's happened, but the good thing is we do have a replay to explain. In fact, we've had an incident for Katehos and Robin Aston off camera. We're looking at them only moments ago. It's all happening, but what exactly happened to Nick Stubb? So he was chasing after Simon Clifton coming down into turn number 2. Did he look for a move here? No, he didn't. Or yes, he did. And in the end, tapped the rear of Clifton's car, and the Mustang didn't go anywhere, but Stubb did. And good reactions there from our drivers to go around either way immediately. They all saw it happening and reacted accordingly. We then had this for Robin Aston only moments later, and this was Aston heading in towards turn number 12. Came out the corner, and then it was Katehos who, well, battling with him. Contact between the two of them. Oh, no! That's a big hit on the back. Tim van den Ham going straight through the rear of Aston's car. So Katehos went round. Aston took the damage to the rear. And, well, for van den Ham, it's a Ferrari now that's definitely going to be feeding quite the bruising as a result. But well, let's head back to your live racing, as that's not the way they've wanted it to go whatsoever. But a A nasty shunt there for all three drivers. And well, for Robin Aston, not a happy moment indeed. But Ross Young, meanwhile, with Jason Hodgson battling with him. Hodgson still there, going up the inside. It's Hodgson. Well, Young went a bit deep, but it covers him to the inside here in towards turn number 14. In fact, it's on the outside there for Young. My apologies, getting the two cars mixed up with similar colour liveries in the dark light. And Jason Hodgson making the move stick there. And well, Ross Young just out of sorts and can't quite take 17th place back in the pro class. 4.5 minutes left on the clock, and the sun has almost completely set now. We're almost into nighttime conditions, albeit there will be some clear skies all the way to the end, so it won't be definitely dark for all the drivers here. As they all come towards the natural conclusion of this race, what will be the last moments from our drivers here that we can expect? Well, one of the big ones is who's going to finish 10th in the pro class. Will it be Victor Van Ziest, who is here and we ride and look back from, or will it be the BMW M4 Crystal Starsmore, or will it be the Porsche 992 of Adam Baker? They all queue up behind as they make the way out to turn number 5 and in towards 6 and 7. And right now the Dutchman here making his way on through the corners, in towards the left hand of turn number 8 he goes. And well, he can stay strong here, but the problem will be when they get towards turns 11 and 12, he may find himself under a bit more pressure. But the rear wing there covering off the front of the BMW, but so close between them. Steve Rubino, meanwhile, a little bit further back onto the back of this, the second place Evo driver. You can see him in the rear of the picture on his Ford Mustang. So it does seem as though this fighting is costing him a lot of time and causing them to fall backwards towards the likes of Adam Swift and Chris Jennings, who are getting onto the back of this as well. So we're getting a big queue of cars here for 10th place here at the pro class, and Victor Van Ziest is the one who's trying to keep them all behind him, at least for now. Through this lap they go, and on to another, and with our leaders already the best part of half a lap through. Oh my good lord, that is a big slide. It's an even bigger slide, and he goes round. They all part the way around. That's some brilliant reflexes there from Starsmore and Baker to part the seas. Van Ziest goes around, and the rear tyres of that Porsche 992 just didn't have any life left, and with the contact to the barrier, I think that's it. I think Van Ziest can't go any further, and in fact, looking at the car right now, black flag as well for losing control and picking up some instant points, and the suspension on that car is crabbing. It's not pointing a straight line. That is a 1-2 punch there for the Dutchman, and that's going to put him completely out of this race. He toes the pitch. You've got to feel for him, because he was trying to hold on to 10th place in the pro class, and in the end it's all come to naught. But from one Dutchman who's struggling to one Dutchman who's absolutely enjoying himself out there. Menno Bloem right now looking very much on course for this one. And after this lap, he's got 2 more laps to go. But one of the question marks you could wonder here is the fact, given the fact he has had no real competition since the start of the race. That's not to be rude, but he's just been able to lead this race comfortably, minus the traffic he picked up on the opening stint 20 minutes in. Has he added a lap to this race that nobody expected? Well, given the fact the lap time around here is 1 3/4 minutes, so around approximately 1 minute 44 to 1 minute 45, you would imagine that most drivers have predicted we get 35 laps, but I do wonder whether some perhaps decided on the idea of it being a 34 lap race. We will see, because we are on lap 34 at the moment. Has anybody underfueled the car thinking we're not going to go a full distance? We will see. But as Adam Smith here tucks in behind Steve Rubino, that's Adam Baker serving a slowdown penalty, and in fact I don't think it's a slowdown. I think he has actually picked up what is a full drive through from misdemeanor, and he's going to have to release places to Chris Jennings and Nick Stubb, who all queue up behind him. Also Robin Powney is getting close. It's all going one way or the other here for drivers right now, and the fight, it doesn't end at the bottom end of the top 10 in the pro class, that's for certain, as Jennings now holds on to 12th place ahead of Nick Stubb, and then Powney gets close in behind. A bit further back, Mark Van Mulken, well, he is in a Pro Ferrari for STL, but to be fair, the SimRacing Team Lowlands driver chasing after Evo drivers. He's enjoying himself, hunting down James Fraser for 36th place overall, as we do look at those overall positions, and we make our way towards the very end. Robin Aston as well, black flag there for track limits. He's having to go into the pits, and Baker in, that's going to cost him. As these drivers make the one down, will we see Van Mulken look for a move into turn 1? The answer is no, he won't, as Adam Baker's had to tow to the pits. The damage on the car has prevented him from getting to the pit lane, and his race is said and done. But 40 seconds left on the clock, and with that, we come back to the fight then for 12th in pro, and it's the Access Sport Blue Machine of Chris Jennings right now, keeping Nick Stubb and Powney behind. The number 16 continuing to prove resilient here as we get a faceful of Mercedes AMG grille of Nick Stubb for a brief moment. Oh, goodness me, Stubb getting very close there as he almost taps through a Genesis car. I think if he had been any closer, it would have been contact. And oh no, Stubb has been disqualified from the race there. And I believe that is for going beyond the instant point count, not just for the drive-through penalty, but also disqualification. So Stubb is suddenly out of this race like that. And I believe it might have been for a bit of netcode contact coming through the chicane. Well, with that, you couldn't make this up. Dean Sheesby's in the rears. Sheesby's got on around, and it's all gone wrong for Sheesby. He loses out to Mark Johnson here in what was 7th place in the pro class, drops 1 place. What else is to come? Jamie Bardwell, meanwhile, he's under pressure from Simon Clifton. Clifton's getting the gloves off and said, right, I'm going for this now. Up the inside, Clifton goes, and Clifton here absolutely being brazen about this one. Who can blame him? Goes all in, and Clifton takes the place, or does he? No, he doesn't, because Jamie Bardwell now comes back at him, but Bardwell's on the outside here as they come on down through turn number 2, and surely it's got to go the way of the Evo driver, and Clifton will take it immediately off of him here, and does so with aplomb. A lovely move from Simon Clifton, up to 6th place overall. But as he takes that and Bardwell now watches on, Bardwell won't have lost a place in Pro, so he's still 6th in Pro, and he'll be very happy about this, given the fact he has gained 11 places in class and overall. It's been a phenomenal drive from him. Well, from him, we do come back to your race leader, and as he makes his way through the last couple of quarters, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a day to remember for SimRacing Team Lowlands. They're going to get a double podium, but for Menno Bloem, it's going to feel special because in his first time in what is the pro class, the Dutchman is going to make it a win overall and in pro here at the Hungaroring. A phenomenal drive. He shakes from side to side in joy, and then it will be at 7 seconds behind for Stephen Codman, who is your runner-up. A brilliant effort from the Ford Mustang driver. Ferrari beats Ford here in Hungary, and Vincent Lodder makes it a double podium for SimRacing Team Lowlands. 3rd place on the road. What an effort from him. David Hutchinson, he'll come home there to complete the cycle of Ferrari then Ford as he finishes 4th for Active Simsport ahead of Jared Love, who in the end makes it home 10 seconds behind to take 5th place. What an effort there from DC Motorsports driver. Stay clear of all the danger and made it count. Simon Clifton brings on home the Evo win there in an absolute pro drive, it must be said. What an effort from him ahead of Jamie Bardwell, and then it will be Mark Johnson, Dean Sheesby and Mark De Vries who round off your top 10 overall, as Sheesby just crossed the line in front, and it will be De Vries. Then we will have Christopher Storsmore taking home 11th place, best of the rest. Flashes lights and absolute joy. Steve Rubino, he takes the runner-up spot there in the Evo class. Well done to the Hobo Racing driver. Phenomenal effort from him ahead of Adam Smith and Chris Jennings. Robin Milton completes your overall top 15, and then coming through a little bit further back in 3rd place in the Evo class. We've got a bit of time before Dave Collier gets to his finish line. Peter Duke in the end comes home in 18th with a mid-race instant cost him dear. Philip Harris finishes in 19th place. Here he comes, and well, good effort from him. He enjoyed a lot of the battles out there, did Harris, and then it is going to be here for Robin Milton. Well, it's going to be a 20th place here. A bit of a struggle of a race today. He started 12th, but in the end it all went backwards and had to take that extra pit stop, of course, for the open lap damage he picked up. But for Dave Collier, for DC Motorsport, what a drive from him. 20 places gained overall, and with it 3rd place in Evo class. Take a bow, Dave. That's a phenomenal debut here at the Hungaroring from you. Tom Cordy finished 22nd behind him, and Denny Ploger missed out on the Evo podium, but 4th place in class. That's nothing to be upset about for the MJK Sim Racing driver ahead of James Bostock, who rounds off your finishers there, just ahead of Rob Gregg, all of your lead lap finishers together. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what an effort from everybody here at the Hungaroring. Tough race, no doubt about it, from everybody involved, but to be fair, the Hungaroring, what it didn't offer in overtaking initially, it definitely built up excitement on both strategy and also do-or-die moves from drivers. And for the most part here, we may have 54 drivers on the circuit. They all show the circuit a lot of respect and the competitors with it. And well, it goes to show absolutely class racing, and that's how we mean to carry on here in Split B and indeed across our splits for the entirety of this season. But as everyone cools and calms on down and makes their way to the pit lane, let's take a look to the scenic view, and with it, of course, those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. So after 60 minutes of racing in our season opening round of the SimRacing International GT3 Championship Season 10, as brought to you on the Premier SimRacing platform available only on PC known as iRacing, and your coverage of course from Split B in the Trophy AI Power Championship, it was Menno Blom who took overall victory for SimRacing Team Lowlands by 6.7 seconds over Stephen Codman for Axis Sim Sports Red. Vincent Lodder rounded off the top 3 overall and improved there, couldn't quite make it a 1-2 for the team, despite putting it on pole position intriguingly, so Lodder might be a one-lap pace driver at least at the start of this season, and there'll be something for him to work on as the season goes on. However, he held on to a podium and he was 8 seconds clear of David Hutchison, with it being Ferrari and Ford, and then a Ferrari and Ford once again, and the privateer there completing your top 4. DC Motorsports' Jared Love took 5th ahead of the privateer Simon Clifton, and we did see there the Ford Mustang driver enjoying an absolutely brilliant run to Evo victory, and absolutely untouchable, so much so he decided to have some fun with the pro drivers around him. One of whom was Mark Johnson, who took 7th in the end for Axis Sim Sport Red, keeping his head cool, calm and consistent all the way through. Had a Dean Sheesby, unfortunate not to finish 7th for that late spin, cost him and put him back into 8th place for Moonshiners Racing Club. Then saw Mark DeVries in 9th for SimRacing Team Lowlands, just ahead of Crystal Starswell, who completed your top 10 for Simcast Racing Team UK, and best the rest in 11th place was Steve Rubino, your runner-up in the Evo class, who gained plenty of places, in fact gained the best part overall of 12 places, and I'll be very happy with that. Now, in fact, intriguingly, folks, we have had a driver dropped down the order. Hold up. Jamie Bardwell, there we go. Bardwell, I think, picked up a post-race time penalty because he was a 7th place finisher, but Bardwell has been dropped all the way down to 17th place overall. There's a story to that. I wonder whether on the final lap he picked up one extra instant that sent him over the instant count, because that is the best part of 40 seconds being added to his race time, and that is what would have been the equivalent of a drive-through penalty. So Bardwell's dropped down to 17th. That's why everyone's gained. Speaking of gains, Adam Smith then up to 12th for Euro Titans Endurance ahead of Chris Jennings, with the Axis Sim Sport Blue drive being followed up by sim coaches Robin Milton and Jason Hodgson, who completed your top 15 for Phoenix Racing Green. Coming on to then the final podium position finisher in the Evo class, because we'll move to our class finishing positions very shortly. Dave Collier there, 21st for DC Motorsport, but 3rd place in Evo. What a great job from him, and indeed he'll be very pleased with that one. Looking to those who finished the lap down, where it was all the way to James Bostock in 24th who finished on the lead lap for GPX SimSport Onyx. And it was a lap down for Rob Gregg in 25th place, all the way through there to Stuart Rice in 36th for Phoenix Racing Red, behind teammate Paul Maffey. And it was 2 laps down there to Nick Stubb in 37th, all the way through to none other than Robert McNaughton for Dexterous Motorsports Quamar, and then it was 3 laps down to Victor Van Zeist, James Fraser and Callum Morrow, with then non-finishers as classified for Tim van den Haan, ahead of Wayne Douglas, James Howarth, Jim Fox, Matthew Hunter, Klaas Vellen, Max Dean, and of course Jovan Hurag and also Billy Brinkley. But coming on to the individual class finishing positions, because this is where all the points are made, lost and won. And as we can see, looking all the way back up to the top of the tower, well, it was Menno Blom there who took the pro victory, and what an effort, 6.7 seconds clear ahead of Stephen Codman, and there was a further 8 seconds or so to Vincent Lodder. David Hutchison 4th there, and 4th off the charge as everybody else, and get out of trouble with Jared Love picking up the pieces that others dropped, finishing 5th for DC Motorsport. There was then a further 7 seconds back to Mark Johnson ahead of Dean Sheesby, with Mark DeVries, Crystal Starsmore and Adam Smith completing that top 10. Behind the Euro Titans Endurance driver, it was best to rest in length for Chris Jennings in the class for Axis Sim Sport Blue, ahead of Robin Milton for the Sim Coach team, and keep your eyes out for him. The Corvette wasn't as quick today, but expect the smiling Swede to be making his way forward as the season goes on. Jason Hodgson, the same there, enjoyed plenty of battles for Phoenix Racing Green, and now he's got the opening round under his belt. I wouldn't be surprised if we see plenty more from it in the rounds ahead, with Ross Young also enjoying a good run there, the Scotsman, 14th, ahead of Jamie Bardwell, who in the end finished inside the top 10, but demoted to 15th place as a result of a post-race time penalty. Peter Jute, a frustrating one's day for DC Motorsports Mercedes driver, but he's got to keep his head up high as the season goes on, 16th, ahead of Philip Harris, Robin Milton, Tom Cordy and James Bostock, who completed the top 20. And outside the top 20, not to be forgotten about there, with the pro class absolutely packed, we did see Fotis Katahos in 21st for Split Strat Esports, the first to drive a lap down, head of Jakub Krafik, with Liam Fraser fighting hard for Moonshiners Racing Club, but the fighting then did not go his way, head of Mark van Mulken, and Nick Stubb 25th there for Vulcan Fasters, Bunker Step being the first 2 laps down. It was Adam Baker and Robin Aston who joined him on that journey 2 laps down, 3 laps down to Victor Van Zeist, and then non-finishers as classified for Tim van den Ham, ahead of Wayne Douglas, James Howarth, and also there Jim Fox, who completed off the finishing order ahead of Klaas Vellen and Jovan Hurag. Then coming from them to the Evo class, and here we can see in the smaller of our two classes, but by no means lesser, Simon Clifton dominating today by 19.5 seconds over Hobo Racing Steve Rubino. But it's a 1-2 for Ford, head of the German marque Mercedes, who completed the top three in the hands of DC Motorsports' Dave Collier, who fought his way all the way through to a third place finish. Well done to the Irishman. And Denny Ploger was full for MJK Sim Racing, missed out on strategy versus Collier, but 2 seconds behind kept him honest and was ahead. And the last of the drives to finish on the league lap overall would have been a lap down to Rob Gregg in 5th place for Moonshiners Racing Club, but an absolutely solid effort from him to fend off the attack of Andy Chell, with the Quatermass Motorsport driver be very happy with that 6th place to start off his season. And then the top 5s are immediately on the cards in the Aston Martin Evo, head of the privateer Martin Brandon, who also gave chase, with Gareth Newton, Alex Boniface and Matt Stace completing Evo top 10 for GPX SimSport Onyx, Dexterous Motorsport Zemix and Flatline Racing. Phoenix Racing Red pair of Paul Maffey and Stuart Rice were best rest and 12th respectively, ahead of 9 Pegasus Panthers Sinhui Alvarez. And then we did see also 2 laps down alongside Alvarez, David Pilcher, Robert McNaughton, with the Dexterous Motorsports Quamar drive being followed up by Moonshiners Racing Club's James Fraser and Callum Morrow. And from the LS Racing driver, it was then non-finishers as classified for Matthew Hunter, Max Dean and Billy Brinkley. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's a rundown of all the provisional finishing positions, of course subject to any stewards' inquiries. And whilst our racing may have concluded and the circuit's fallen silent, we're not going to fall silent on the broadcast here for too long, because coming up in approximately 5 minutes' time, we're going to be bringing you interviews with our drivers, and there's plenty of stories to be told here from the Hungaroring. So without further ado, let's get to it. We'll see you again in approximately 5 minutes.
Of the green flag, and there we go. Tristan immediately getting the jump on his teammate Luke Lucchese, and he's going to have to go the long way around the outside. It's not done yet because Luke will have that favoured inside line going into turn 1 side by side. Has had a good start. He's up 2 places on the outside of Luke Lucchese, 3 wide there. The blue Acura on the inside. Hayden Phoenix Miller has gone from 4th to 1st in the matter of 1 braking zone there, and he will carry these drivers now down in toward turn 4. Great start there for the debutant, who had strong qualifying pace, and now he might be up with an opportunity of making that stick if he can get the clean air in the next, and Plug could have a good run here. Let's ride on board. How does the Obliga defend going into the chicane? Is Plug going to do that tactic where you just stay there right until the last Obliga moves over to the entry into the chicane? Good driving. That's a wobble by Tristan, and he's off the road. He's going to lose the position. Is he going to stick up the inside? No. And is Justin Eloff going to fancy his chances? No, he stays.
Watkins Glen, and to have only 9 minutes till we reset and go again gives, I think, the drivers a bit of a moment to pause for thought, because how are you going to manage this especially if you're 3 wide down the main straight? Humphrey, Leskinen, Catrali all don't get out Raj Harper either. 2x2 into the opening corner. Outside line taken for Humphrey. He's lost a little bit of time on the exit though, as it looks like it's a better run for Callie Leskinen, the leader now in that pro class, as they run their way up the hill through 2 and 3. It looks like Raz Harper's got the best run, and now we could see both elite drivers come through on both pro drivers. They'll have to get it done on the outside of the bus stop, and that is going to be more than difficult to do. Who's going to get the slipstream? That could be crucial.
And as we now head towards the line, the first round of the season in the America's GT Challenge is underway, and there's a bit of a check-up on the second row of the grid there, as some of the guys have to really slow down and keep it under wraps. But now as they go into the first corner for the first time, hopefully everybody keeping it nice and clean. We'll have to see just how they do. All the GTEs making their way through. Obviously there's a bit of a gap back to the GT3s. They have their own race starting separately, and it's Justin Eloff ahead of Alex.
Getting a bit busy though towards the front of the GT. There's a bit of bump drafting. Perry's in here as well. Tim's looking to try and find his way through. Brian Wildmon at the back of this pack as well. Hayden Miller getting the big old push from Perry as they work their way towards the opening corner. I think it's probably quite smart from Tim there just to keep Hayden closer to the front too, because if Hayden loses out, they all lose out. So he's not necessarily going for that move.
he's going to go for it as he looks all the way into the S's. 2 by 2 they go behind Christopher Wandler and Moss there. Well, they have swapped places back to how they were. And, well, this is going to be Williams. A small tap between the two of them. They just about survive it. And in the end, Archie Williams is going to make the move. Stick around the outside. That's bold. That's brave. But that's how you get it done. And more across the line he goes. And now Christopher Wandler also ahead there as Bowie Moss gets forward. And now they make the round down. You can see he's pulling over there, Darren. He's not happy. He knows he's vulnerable.
He does. He's just defending that inside line. He knows it's difficult to walk around the outside into the S's. Barry Nuevo is going to try it though. He's got a great run and he's already passed. He's already passed before we get to the corner. Easy as you like. And Wilmont can do absolutely nothing to defend there. The exit wasn't too poor for the Ford Mustang, but there's too much pace in that Corvette in the straight line. And Barry Nuevo just waits bye-bye. Easy for the 77.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews, and we're going to kick straight off with a new man to the grid. It's going to be Jared Love from DC Motorsport in the Pro class, and he's had an absolutely brilliant start to the season as he gets ready to join me in the interview room now with a 10th place start but a 5th place finish. Let's get him in and hear the story. So as he does join me now, good evening to you, Jared, and what a way to open up your season account. A 10th place start, a 5th place finish. I mean, you must be absolutely proud of that one.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Really happy with that. It's a tough track. I really don't like it. Didn't have the best qualifying, but you're delighted to finish top 5. The goal was just to be in the top half. First race with SRI, so yeah, delighted.
Well, indeed, for your first race, I mean, as far as first races go, it's definitely a great one. But coming into this, of course, a little bit of talking about the team, DC Motorsport, a team of established friends and indeed long-time real-life racers. Tell us a little bit, have you done a bit of real-life racing? Because I know that I believe it's Peter Duke and Wayne Douglas have done plenty, as has Mr. Collier, but I don't know too much about yourself.
No, none at all, other than the odd, go-karting at a local rental place. But no, I've grew up playing sort of ball sports, rugby and football, and got into sim racing about a year ago after playing, F1 games and Gran Turismo and stuff on a controller, and I've just fallen totally in love with it and met David, Peter and Wayne racing in a different league, which I think they still race in, and they invited me to join the team.
Oh, fantastic. Well, coming from a non-racing background, but to be fair, you're applying the craft very quickly and the addiction has definitely bitten. So, coming into this season then, what's made you pick the Mercedes AMG?
Yeah, we were having discussions about it. I drove the Mustang in the previous league and really liked it. And then on the new tyre model, I was wanting a wee change. And I know it's similar enough with being a front-engine car. And initially, when the patch came out, they were very, very powerful. So I just got it. I like how it sounds, I like how it looks, and I drive okay with it. So yeah, there's no main reason for it other than wanting a wee change for the Mustang, and there we are.
Well, a good choice in the end, and sound reasons for doing so. Let's come a bit to it. So you told us only moments ago, not the biggest fan of the Hungaroring, and only expected to finish in the top half today. So when you qualified 10th, how did that make you feel? Were you much higher than you expected? Perhaps therefore thought to yourself, you know what, there could be a very big result here.
I did get the best lap in, but then looking at everyone else's laps, I think there was obviously some issue with the temperature of the track or the grip level. So a 10th was about hopefully where I was hoping to qualify, and there was a few incidents, and yeah, just lucky that didn't get involved with anything and wasn't really racing anyone all race. It was kind of my own little planet. But yeah, happy, delighted with P5.
Well, racing in your own little planet. And with that as well, I mean, around the Hungaroring, one of the things we want to talk about a little bit over the course of the broadcast was the fact this is a circuit that doesn't really offer much in the way of grip. So I can imagine the concentration levels must have to be very high. You must have felt as though over the course of the race, it's almost as if you're fighting the circuit as much as you are with other cars.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to be so precise where you are braking. You know, if you brake a little bit too heavy on 4, 5, 6 of the corners, you're losing the rears and you're spinning, or you're catching a spin and losing time. So you've got to be so accurate with how hard you're braking. It's a lot of slow, long braking, light braking into corners and hoping that rears just bite in and don't slide.
Well, definitely not fun when the car does slide. I can imagine that Mercedes with all that grunt over the front of it doesn't like a power slide whatsoever. But speaking of perhaps sliding into the pit lane, did you change up your strategy at all compared to what you had planned, or was it as planned?
It was as planned. I was planning on just full fuel at the start, all 63, 64 litres, run it till pretty much empty, bearing in mind if there was no damage or anything, which luckily there wasn't. And then pit, no tyres, and just take what my fuel calculator was telling me to take. I think I ended with 2 laps too much, but given I was 10 seconds behind the guys in front and 5 ahead of the ones behind, I don't think the couple of seconds lost would have made much difference at all.
Well, absolutely fair analysis, to be fair. And like you say, whilst you had a little bit of a lonely race, particularly in the second half, coming home with a 5th place at the end, I mean, it's a huge start. And I have to ask, when we look ahead over this whole season, are there any rounds where the Hungaroring today, you've scored big when perhaps you didn't think you were going to score big? Are there any rounds where you're going to be saying to us, this is the round where you think you can do incredibly well, perhaps put it on the podium or win?
Hopefully, Road America. I really like that track, but I think a lot of people do. So as much as I'll be hopefully faster and more competitive there, I think more people will be as well. Sebring as well, but again, really popular track. In Mugello, I've ran it twice in the last 3 months in a different league. So I'm fairly well versed with the track and hopefully have the pace over others if it's not been ran as much by anyone else.
Well, absolutely fair. Well, we'll look forward to seeing what you can do at those circuits later on in the season. But last question already before we begin to wrap up. In terms of what lies in wait in a week's time, Circuit Zandvoort, yay or nay?
I'll get back to you next week. I'm not sure. Not sure at all.
I love it. The politician's question. The politician's answer. I absolutely love it, Jared. Well, with that, just as we get ready to let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to?
Yeah, shout out and thank you to my wife. I've got two toddlers, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So anytime I get on the rig to practice or to race is an absolute blessing. And she's really good with giving me a bit of time to race and to do some practice.
Oh, brilliant. Well, I'm sure if Mrs. Love is listening right now, she'll be very grateful for the shout out. Well, Jared, it's been an absolute pleasure having you join me in the interview room. Well done and a phenomenal result to start off your season. We look forward to seeing what you can do at Zandvoort in a week's time. But until then, have a great rest of your evening and thank you once again.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. You have a good evening too. Thank you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Jared Love, new to the grid and indeed new, relatively speaking, in the world of sim racing. But he is full of enthusiasm and what a way to kick things off. Surrounded by a team full of drivers, both on the simulator and in real life with plenty of experience. He's relatively only a year's worth of experience by comparison, but don't let it fool you into thinking he's not quick. And he's showing it today. His target here was just to finish inside the top half of the grid. In the end, it puts it 10th on the grid and realising in qualifying that nobody's really matching their lap times, most likely due to the temperature of the circuit and the grip conditions, when he moved forward from there. And was honest, most of his race was just spent minding his own business and enjoying running at his own pace. But sometimes that's what you've got to do. And when everybody else is getting it wrong and losing their head around you, well, he didn't lose his head. Nailed his strategy, put a little bit too much fuel in. But like he mentioned there, even if he had taken the fuel out that he put in, well, he would not have really gained anything in comparison because the gap to David Hutchison was 9 seconds at the close. And the 2 extra laps worth of fuel, that probably would have been worth the best part of about 4 seconds in total. So the DC Motorsport driver there would not have really lost out on potential 4th place finish. But 5th in class, 5th overall, plenty to move forward from. He didn't give us an answer in regards to Circuit Zandvoort. He took the route of, you know what, we'll see in a week's time, but he's definitely looking forward to the more power-based circuits later in the season, particularly Road America there. Although, very clever in the way he's vetted himself there in really saying that whilst he loves the circuits, he knows that most of the field will love them as well. So he's not expecting to dominate there, unlike what you perhaps could expect when a driver says it's their favourite round, because they know that a lot of drivers do love those circuits. So Jared's done a lot of research on the field before he's got to the grid. I like that about him, and I'd like to see what he can do in a week's time. I'm sure we all would, ladies and gentlemen. So keep your hats pressed, because he's definitely going to be one to watch out for. But we've got more interviews to come up, and another interview's on its way very shortly, folks. We'll be right back. Without further ado then, ladies and gents, we go from the Pro class to the Evo class, and joining me now in the interview room is none other than Andy Chell. Good evening to you again, Andy, and how are you doing today after what was a near miss for 5th, but a brilliant drive for 6th in the Evo class?
Hey Paul, yeah, that was a tough one. That I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, a little bit annoyed until me and James have had a bit of a chat in the cool down room, so it's cooled it off a little bit. So, but yeah, I think that tap into that penultimate corner may have cost me a podium. But hey, you know, the pace was there in the car. Nice recovery up to 6th. I'll take it. Points are points at the end of the day. It's only the first race of the season, and it's better to finish and get some points than not finish at all. Which having Mike in my ear for the race really helped out with. So yeah, hard race, but you know, happy to come home with at least some points.
Well, to be fair, like you say, could have been a lot more, could have potentially been a podium. It was unfortunate, the contact between yourself and James Howarth, but it's great that you two have been able to talk about it a little bit. But let's continue to talk about the positives. So you've had Mike Barber in your ear, giving you strategic advice and calls over the course of the race. You talked about that last week and said that it'd be a big A game, giving you the sole representative of Quantum Motorsport for this season on the grid. But the Hungaroring looked as though it was a circuit that you actually did quite well at, even though I think a lot of drivers have been saying it's not a circuit they enjoy. Qualifying, for example, 6th in class, 39th from the grid, seemed quite impressed.
Yeah, the car, I mean, it doesn't suit it. The Aston, as we've said last week, is more suited to the fast speed to circuits. But yeah, it felt decent. Qualifying, we did half race fuel for the first run, then came in, switched that down to 20 litres for the second run, didn't swap tyres, so we avoided the 2 to 3 lap warm up, because that was the problem with the tyres around here, was very much that you needed 2-3 laps just to get it warm. And yeah, it seemed to work out. Like I say, having Mike there, as I said last week, it takes a little bit of the thought. Well, it frees up more brain capacity for me to just drive. I don't have to think strategy. I don't have to worry about. I don't have to worry. Oh, is this there? Is this there? Oh, something's changed. I can just say, right, this has changed. Mike can work it and compute it. So it's a massive game changer. And to be fair, really helps when things don't go quite well either, because obviously he's there. Just whispering in the ear, and again, qualifying every lap, he was like, right, okay, you've done great here, you're a little deep here, think about that, just remember. So yeah, it honestly, I knew it would help because he's done it before. He did it in season 7, and we had a really good season in season 7. And yeah, it's so much help. I can't thank him enough for giving up his time to do it for me. I really can't.
Well, I'm sure he'll appreciate the big thank you from yourself immediately there. And over the race distance, of course, we just seen on the replay footage the aftermath between yourself and Mr. Howarth, and the fact you got your head down and went going again. Tell us a little bit about how it felt in the race, because the fact that you gained quite a few places at the start, chasing down that podium quite early on, it looked as though things were clicking for you, whereas everybody else was struggling out there.
Yeah, I noticed that. I mean, the first 2 laps, Mike honestly was having a panic attack, because he was like, you're on cold tyres, stop it, calm down, you're on cold tyres, calm down. But it genuinely, the car just, I don't know, it just felt good. Genuinely just felt good. I could put it, I mean, we've said this last season when we were talking about the Porsche in the rain, it felt similar to that. I could put it where I wanted, and I knew what it was going to do. So I was just, me and the car were happy. I haven't got a name for it yet. We'll come up with one, unless the stream wants to come up with one. We'll see what they put in there. But yeah, it just clicked. It was happy. I mean, it did help that others were having incidents to begin with. That always helps you jump up the order a little bit. But yeah, it honestly, them first 3-4 laps, it was fantastic. And then even after the spin, the car itself was was on rails. It was brilliant. There was a couple of times when I'd push it a bit deep in corners, but that was me, not the car. I drove the first 15 minutes with cramp in my brake foot as well, which didn't help. I said, me and Mike, he was talking about. He's like, can you like stretch it out on the straights just to try and take it out? I was like, it's what I'm trying to do, but. 15 minutes of cramp. It was like the toes locking in the shin. It was fun. People say this sport isn't difficult. It really is. But yeah, the car, like I say, it was just on rails, and I've got to put it down to that being able to allow me to recover it, just being able to trust it and push it and just keep putting in them 45, 46 lap times just to get back where I needed to. So yeah, I was really happy with it.
Well, it's fantastic to hear the happiness with the car, even with a bit of cramp in your foot as well. I mean, not ideal, like you say, but you pushed through it. And strategy-wise, did the contact that you had make you change your strategy, or did you stick to your guns?
No, we ran a few race simulations ahead of tonight. The plan was always go as far as we can with the fuel. The one thing we weren't sure on was, were we going to put tyres on or not? That was the one thing we weren't sure of. It was a bit up in the air which lap we come in, but we were pretty much just because we weren't actually sure where my pit was going to be for the race. So we were on fumes when we pulled into the box, but that worked out perfect. We ran a little extra fuel in the end just to be on the safe side because we weren't sure if the race would go one lap longer than it did. And you've always got to be on the safe side with that. So we were probably a little heavier than other people towards the end. But no, the strategy itself was exactly fuel-wise to plan. It was just, do we go with tyres or not? And in the end, we didn't because, like I say, the car felt amazing. So we left them on, and it paid because you're not getting that 3-4 laps of get these tyres back up, you're instantly back on it, which I think really paid dividends. So yeah, I'm happy with it there.
Well, a very happy result, although I can imagine a little bit of pressure towards the end as well, as you did have none other than Martin Brandon breathing down your neck, and also I believe a couple of other Evo drivers who in the end fell backwards, but Martin wasn't leaving you alone.
No, it was good. It was a good fight. It's pretty much straight after coming out of the pits. Really, to be fair, he was there, and I knew when I came out of the pits and he was there. It was like, right, I've got 1-2 laps. I've got to break away from him. And once I got a 2-second gap, I was comfortable, happy. But yeah, I think he messaged actually saying catching you was one thing, getting past you is another. It's like, yeah, I am hard to pass. I'm not. I'll always leave room. I will always have fun. And it'll always be respectful. But if you get past me, you've worked for it. Unless the pros, yeah, I'll not push them as much. But if we're racing for a position in class, it's you've got to earn your way past. And I expect the same the other way around. I think we're racing, and it's more fun when you can have that respectful side-by-side racing. And me and Martin, we had a real good little battle for a few laps, and then, like I say, we got that gap, and I was comfortable with it at that point. But yeah, it was real good fun.
Well, I can hear it in your voice, the fun you've had. And looking ahead now to next week, we head to Circuit Zandvoort. I mean, our previous interviewee, Jared Love, did not give an answer to whether it's a yay or nay. But for yourself, Zandvoort, yay or nay?
Yeah, absolutely yes. I genuinely think the Aston is going to be very strong around there. It's the sort of track it likes. It's got massive long straights, high speed corners. It's going to be fine. I mean, the middle section, it's hard to overtake anyway. So where we're probably in the Aston is going to be weaker, it's going to be difficult for people to get through. So yeah, I'm genuinely looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really fantastic opportunity.
Oh, brilliant. We look forward to you trying to seize that opportunity in the Netherlands in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Andy, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, first and foremost to Mike. I know I said earlier, but honestly, it really means a lot for him to give up his time and come and help out and crew for me. So firstly to him. Secondly to all the Quatermass team that do everything in the background and help out where they can. Our sponsors, thank you very much for putting yourselves on the car. We really appreciate all the help they give us. Yourself, matey, as always, you put on a fantastic show for us, so really appreciate it. Everybody in SRI, thank you so much for putting this on. If you didn't, we couldn't come and have this fun. And then everyone who's watched, I know there's a couple of my friends that said they're going to tune in, so if they have, appreciate it, thank you very much. If you're watching it back, again, thank you very much. And everyone else, thank you, because if you didn't come and watch it, we wouldn't get put on, so appreciate it.
Well, likewise, Andy, we always appreciate you putting aside some time to join me in the interview room, and this evening's no exception. Congratulations once again on a brilliant drive to 6th in the Evo class. We know what it could have been, but it wasn't to be today, but still there are plenty of rounds to go, and this is surely a sign of things to come. Speaking of which, we look forward to seeing what you can do at Circuit Zandvoort, but until then, well done once again, and have a great rest of your evening.
Angie, thank you very much, mate.
So here and there from a highly reflective Andy Chell, talking a lot about the comfort he felt today, and the fact as well that as the race went on, very grateful to have teammate Mike Barber, who would normally be out on the circuit with him, but instead on the pit wall, giving him guidance lap after lap, helping him out, advised him where he can improve, things to worry about with regards to strategy, and all the important details that enable a driver to get their head down and deliver the best possible race. And it's working for Quatermass Motors, but you can see it immediately. And the fact that he was contesting third place in the early stages, an incident happened, but he didn't give up. And in the end, the Aston Martin got his head down, drove to 6th, and did very well to hold off the attacks of Martin Brandon midway through the race in that second stint. And I get the feeling that this could be a great season for Andy Chell. The way things are moving forward right now, he seems comfortable in the car. And with it, the pace is shining. He's got a teammate in one ear as well, giving him guidance. If he can keep this up when he goes to Zandvoort and deliver there, I wouldn't be surprised if we could start to see not just his first top 5s, but even his first podiums coming on through, because I think Andy right now has got a lot of confidence behind him, and it's a different man behind the wheel, and well, you love to see it. But speaking of things we also love to see, we would love to see one more interview this evening, ladies and gentlemen, but who's it going to be? We're going to find out very shortly. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, they say you leave the best till last. Well, we definitely have left the best to last today. Efficient positions are the way to go, because joining me now in the interview room is none other than Menno Bloem, the SimRacing Team Lowlands driver who took victory on his first race of the season. Menno, congratulations. What a drive from yourself, but how was it for yourself out there?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, the first corner was very important, of course. Then I overtook my teammate Vincent. And after that, I had to keep it on the road.
Now, just on that, I mean, you've put it down so simply in terms of how the race was. I mean, qualifying, in the end, missing out on pole position versus your teammate by 600. I mean, it did seem as though Vincent was the faster of the two of you in qualifying. Or was that a sort of a bit of a, okay, you may have beaten me to pole, but I'm going to beat you into turn 1?
Nah, the qualifying is very difficult with 60 people on the track, or almost 55 or something. So then if you are on a hot lap, sometimes, yeah, you are driving faster, but then you get a hole up. So it's very difficult for everybody to get a very quick time. But Tuesday we had a practice race, and then I started first, so I knew a little bit the braking point. So I saw him braking a little bit too early. So that's the moment I could outbrake him and immediately put it next to him in the first corner.
Oh, fair play. That little bit of noise really coming in handy. I mean, you absolutely went for it, and in the end, I think Vincent, I don't know if you had a chat to him since getting out the cars, but I could imagine he's probably said to you, didn't have to attack me that much. It put him quite a way down the order.
Yeah, Vincent had a little bit plenty understeer the first few laps, he said. A lot of understeer. But yeah, that's why he fell a few places back, but at the end he also came back to the third place, so also a very good comeback.
Oh, 100%. A brilliant comeback from him. And I've noticed that yourself and the whole team at SimRacing Team Lowlands have all gone for the Ferrari 296 for this season. Was it a team decision, or have you all just come to that decision?
We made a decision together. We said, okay, if we are driving together, we like to drive in the same car together. We were practicing with BMW, and at the end we chose the Ferrari.
Oh, fair choice. And, well, the Ferrari seems to bode well with yourself. And talking a bit more about the longer distance, you naturally pulled away as the race went on. Stephen Codman never quite got close enough to contest you. But at one point, about 20 minutes in, you came up behind a lot of traffic, but you decided to go through it and stay out rather than pit. Was that always the plan, or was that a bit of a late call?
No, I wanted to go as late as possible, just drive as long as possible. And then go lighter and hopefully don't have too much losing time with the traffic, but it's very difficult also, this traffic. It's so busy on track, and everywhere where you come you see cars coming again. But I'm not the only one who has problems with the traffic. Also Stephen had problems.
Oh, 100%. What was difficult for yourself was also difficult for the man behind you, but in the end you made it work and took the victory by quite the comfortable margin of the best part of 7 seconds. And I have to ask, is this what we can expect from you over the course of the season? Because this is a statement.
Last season was the premiere and didn't start very well last season. Every time in the first few laps I had an incident by myself or with a crash with somebody else. But at the end of the season I got a pace, and then I also won a few times. So I hoped in the Pro to get the top 10 or maybe top 5, but to win a race, the first race, I didn't expect. And I don't know if I can keep up the pace. I hope so, but I don't know.
Oh, fair play. Well, in a week's time, we head to your home circuit of Circuit Zandvoort. How are you feeling for a visit to the home circuit?
I need a lot of practice because I know the layout, but I haven't raced, and I raced only a few laps in the BMW on Zandvoort a few weeks ago, and for the rest, nothing yet. So I need a lot of practice to get on speed again.
Oh, fair play. Well, practice makes perfect, like they say. And, well, if today's anything to go by, with a bit of practice, surely it'll be a perfect victory once again. Well, we'll wait and see whether that happens. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Oh, no, I want to thank you. I thank Vincent for letting me buy in the first corner. Because I think if I stayed behind Vincent after the first corner, then I think Vincent would have won.
Oh, fair play. Well, definitely a great team effort between the two of you, and I'm sure Vincent will be grateful for the mention there. Well, Menno, go on.
It's going to be tight, Vincent. I think it's a little bit quicker, but I'm getting also on pace, so Tim is also very quick. So I think we will see them more often in the top 5 the coming races.
Oh, fair play. Well, great mention to yourself and your teammates there from SimRacing Team Lowlands. Menno, we'll leave it there, but congratulations on a brilliant, unexpected, shall we say, but an absolutely brilliant all-win in our season opener. Can you make it 2 from 2 at home at Zandvoort in a week's time? We'll see. But until then, my friend, well done and have a great rest of your evening.
Yeah, thank you, and same to you.
So hearing it there, ladies and gentlemen, from Menno Blum, a very happy Menno Blum, but also a bit of a speechless Menno Blum, which last time we interviewed him, I think, which was in Season 8, if I remember correctly, very talkative then, but I think he sort of sat down after this one and realised to himself what he's done, and openly admitting there, after a miserable Premier season last season, where he had all the pace, but instance plagued him, particularly in the first half of the season, he didn't really get to show what he had until the second half of the season. Here today, in a brand new class, in the Pro class, takes a step up, puts it second, misses out on pole versus his teammate by 600ths, and decides, based on experience, right, I'm going to go for it into turn 1 because I know exactly where I can make the move. Makes it stick, forces his teammate to find a bit of understeer and fall down the order, albeit Vincent Lodder does recover to third in the end, but just walks away and just simply says, right, I'm taking the checker flag in this one, gentlemen, and takes the win. When all he was targeting was the top 10 this season in terms of his results. That is a big statement, a surprising one, but to be fair, if he can keep this up and his teammates come with him, there's no reason why, for Menno Blum and SimRacing Team Lowlands, this could not be a huge season for them. And there's a lot of confidence there. And whatever made them switch from the BMW to the Ferrari at the 11th hour, as I mentioned, in terms of practicing the BMW only to go with the Ferrari, something tells me they've clocked onto something with this car. They found a car that really works for the team. They can get behind it, get the knowledge in, and this really could prove to be a great season. However, It's only one round. We've been at a very technical circuit today. Zandvoort, it's technical, but in a very different way with the camber of the corners. Let's not read into it too much, but could this be a sign of what's to come based on our season opener? And, well, we will have to wait and see when it's all done in round number 2 in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. And a big thank you to all 3 of our interviewees. Speaking of which, we heard earlier from our Pro Class driver, our 5th place finisher of Jared Love for DC Motorsport on his debut and his inaugural interview. Great to hear from him. We then heard from interview regular from the Evo class of Quantum S Motorsports, Andy Shell. It's always good to hear from an Evo driver. And what an effort from him. 6th place in class. Knowing there could have been more today, but we'll take that with open arms. And then we just heard from your race winner, Menno Bloem for SimRacing Team Lowlands, the 122 driver, absolutely delivering a stellar performance, a surprising one at that, but absolutely nailed it, and looking forward to seeing what he can do in a week's time. Well done to all 3 of them. Really grateful to have them all join me in the interview room, and we look forward to plenty more interviews as the season plays out, and we'll be getting perspectives from up and down the grid, ladies and gents, because we love to interview drivers regardless of whether they've had a great day in the office or perhaps an average day or worse. Everyone has a story to tell here in the SimRacing International GT3 Championship. But with that, it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now thinking that you want to be on the grid with us here at SimRacing International, there's never been a better time to do so, because we have plenty going on, and there's plenty more to come. Indeed, you could be on the grid on Thursdays in our GT3 Championship, which you've been tuning into today, albeit there is an extensive waiting list for the remainder of Season 10, but get on it, you never know, you might make it in. We also do have the upcoming, in collaboration with UK Sim Racing, who we have recently taken ownership of. We're reviving their GT3 Championship, or should we say continuing their GT3 Championship, with Season 16 of that due to get underway this Sunday and be presented via post-round broadcast in the subsequent week. We also do have, if you're not a fan of GT3s but you like GTEs, well, why not consider the America's GT Challenge that runs every alternating Sunday evening, and indeed packed full of surprises and excitement there. The America's GT Challenge, it's all about multi-class racing in 2 classes of car which are extremely similar, GTEs and GT3s all together at some brilliant American continent venues. We also do have an upcoming new season of racing on Monday evenings. That's yet to be fully unveiled, but we'll be talking a bit more about that in the near future, so stay tuned for that. And if you don't want to pay to be on the grid, perhaps you're more of a casual racer or just wanting to find your feet, well, fret not, because we do have the SimRacing International Practice League, which runs on both Tuesday evenings and Saturday mornings. So there's never been a better time to be part of the grid at SimRacing International, and there's plenty here for you. And to be able to be part of the grid, all you've got to do is join our official Discord server, invite link available on screen. At this point, we'd also like to say a big thank you to our title and league sponsors, because without them it would not be possible. We do say a big thank you firstly to our title sponsor for the GT3 Championship, Trophy.ai. Also thank you to Carme, More Than Technology. Also to SimCoach, where you can unlock your true potential as a sim racing driver. To the GP2 Group, and last but not least, of course, to Motorsport UK's esports division that continues to recognise us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community. We're very grateful for that recognition, and long may it continue as we continue to maintain our relationship with Motorsport UK. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, attention now turns to a week's time, because in round number 2, we head to the Netherlands. We head north on the Hungary circuit and all the way to the Circuit Zandvoort we go. It's going to be by the Dutch coast that our drivers will go racing, but with plenty of camber on the corners and some fast sweeping bends as well. It's going to be a very different style of circuit, but strategy is going to be just as important as outright on-track overtaking. But who will maintain the momentum? Find out on Thursday, the 2nd of October 2025, whether in the Pro Class, Menno Bloem can make it 2 from 2, or whether it'll be his fellow countrymen from the Netherlands who make it victory, or we see a new name at the top. Meanwhile, in the Evo class, it was a dominant run from Simon Clifton. No doubt about it, but can he continue that run, or was it a one-off wonder? Well, for all that and more, we'll find out then. But until then, we've been SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Brit and Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, like our drivers, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.